It's 6 o'clock. I'm going to call the meeting to order. Please stand as you are able for the salute to the flag of our country. Thank you. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And we'll start with Madam Clerk, if you'd please call the roll.
Councilmember Ding.
Here.
Councilmember Farrar-Rivas.
Here.
Vice Mayor Gurney. Councilmember Wellender.
Here.
Mayor Lowe.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. We are holding this meeting in public, in person, and also on Zoom, as we like everyone to participate. There was no closed session. I would like to move for approval of the agenda, please.
So moved.
Moved by...
I second.
And moved and seconded. Any questions about the agenda? Yes, sir.
Madam City Clerk, do we need to close the closed session that we held last week?
Actually, you do. Thank you.
And
need to
when
do
do we do that on the agenda?
You can do it now that just that there was no reportable action.
I did that. I said there was no report from closed session. I said there was no closed session. We actually had a closed session last week.
We opened it.
We opened it.
Yeah.
Okay, so, but there was no action on that as well. So now that we've reported everything that we haven't done and that we haven't acted upon, we're almost ready to do the things that we're actually going to do. Isn't that exciting? So, any other questions on the agenda? Okay, seeing none, if you call the roll, please.
Councilmember Ding.
Aye.
Councilmember Farrar-Rivas.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Gurney.
Aye.
Councilmember Wellender.
Yes.
Mayor Lowe.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion carries unanimously.
Wonderful. So we're at the portion of the agenda where we entertain comments from the public on anything that is not on the agenda. So you have 3 minutes, and we invite you to come to the podium.
Good evening, Mayor Lowe and members of the City Council. My name is Lori Sebesta. I live at 450 Easton Drive, and you probably remember me from a couple weeks ago at the initial meeting on March 1st where I presented. I'm here this evening on a couple of issues. One is to correct the record. When I gave you the history of Bocce Sonoma, I stated that the first 2 courts were built in Depot Park in October 2008 by Sonoma Sister Cities and donated to the city of Sonoma at a cost of $15,000. I also stated that Bocce Sonoma repaid that initial investment to Sonoma Sister Cities. Councilmember Ding corrected my statement and said it was at a cost of $10,000 and the debt had not been repaid. For the record, I would like to submit this document substantiating my initial statement. It's a letter to John Finucchi, the then Bocce Chair Board, from Farrell Badome, the then president of Sonoma Sister Cities, dated May 2nd, 2013, summarizing a meeting to discuss finances in which both the $15,000 price tag and the repayment by Sonoma Sister Cities by Sonoma Bocce is documented. May I submit that, please, for the record?
Sure, please.
Thank you. Secondly, I want to commend the City Council on the formation of the Parks, Recreation, and Open Space Commission. Myself and 3 of my board members attended their first meeting last week and believe there is definitely a strong team in place to support the issues and problems facing Sonoma. I also want to commend Public Works. The bathrooms have been absolutely spotless in the last couple of weeks that we have been there and checking. Commend you greatly on that. I also wish to just advise you that April 22nd, we will have a delegation from Greve, Italy coming. I'm sure you realize that. And we are going to be playing a fun and competitive game with some of those delegates, along with Petanque, who will have 175 people playing their wine open. You are all invited to attend, come and see the fun, see what Bocce and Petanque do, and how important Depot Park is for all of us. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. Any other items from the public? Any items on Zoom?
No one's raising
No
their
one,
hand.
okay. Moving on to meeting dedications. I understand, the Vice Mayor, you have some to submit.
Yes, I do. I would like to dedicate tonight's meeting to actually 3 different individuals. The first one is Angelo San Giacomo of the vineyard fame and the wine growing patriarch, if you will. Very involved in the Sonoma Valley, very supportive of the nonprofit community, and he passed away on February the 27th of 2023. 2023, how's that? And then, sadly enough, shortly after his funeral on March the 6th, his sister, Lorraine San Giacomo, passed away. And both of them were in their 90s. Lorraine was a board member of the Sonoma Valley Hospital for over 25 years. And she also was a volunteer with Catholic Social Services during her life here. And thirdly, Rob Lyons of the Lion Ranch Therapy Animals. He passed away in February on the 22nd. And he and his family have done amazing work with animals, bringing them into the hospitals, and particularly Kazi the camel, and just brought great joy not only to patients but to schools and to the community center. And I would just like to honor the 3 individuals. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I have one. Does anyone else have any? I'd like to dedicate this meeting to Lynn Maloof. Lynn was my yoga teacher and a great inspiration to many of us in Sonoma. She battled for 3 years cancer and leaves behind a loving family and a lot of students that learned so much from her. Thank you. We are at council members' reports and comments, and I'm going to start to my right with Mr. Wellender, and then we'll just go and share what we got.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The one commission I attended this past 2 weeks was the first meeting of PROS. There was comment made by the public recently. I, too, am encouraged by both the quality of the commission as well as the energy, and I have great expectations on what they're going to bring to the city of Sonoma.
Wonderful. Mr. Vice Mayor.
Yes, I attended the Sonoma Tourism Improvement District, and that particular meeting found out that the visitors guide is being updated to be re-released in August. They're updating the Sonoma Valley Winery map. They're working with a company that is going to recruit and attract group sales for our hotels locally. And financially, they look to be in pretty good shape. They did report on February the 9th that they had about $652,000 in their account, and then an additional catastrophic reserves account of about $200,000. So it's kind of interesting. It was my first meeting, and the city manager joined me at that meeting as well. But there's some interesting movement going on to bring tourism to Sonoma and the Valley. Thank you.
Great. Mr. Ding.
I was attending the county the COC and the meeting. COC stands for Continue Over the Care. Basically, take care of the homeless issues for each of the city and each in the region. Other than the counties also, they have that similar organization. This time is my second time for the meeting, just for an orientation. I just briefly introduce our local services, including the SOS and HAS. And also, at the beginning, I hesitated to suggest, and later on, I did the host organization and suggest to reduce the meeting hour because from the 1 to 5 o'clock, it's really too long, especially for second half of the meeting, and attendees couldn't focus themselves on each item. They will consider, hopefully in the future, they will put more items in the consent agenda. Thank you.
Ms. Ferrar Rivas?
Yes, I attended Sonoma Clean Power Authority board meeting, and probably there was a lot of good reports that they have that you can go onto their site and look at, but looking at overall usage of everybody in the counties that they serve, Sonoma, Mendocino, and I think they're also starting to look at potentially Lake County. But the big thing that happened in the meeting was they were approving project agreements with free firms to expand the geothermal capabilities at the geyser. And so the three that were approved were, one was Chevron New Energies, Circ Energy, and Ever Incorporated, each of them using a different strategy to actually improve the thermal dynamics. There was a lot of discussions, particularly around Chevron, and although Chevron was approved, it was not approved unanimously. So just wanted to add that last note. Oh, the other thing is a fun note of one of the things that they're doing for the Latinx community is they're doing telenovelas. And you can go to the site and see does everybody know what a telenovela is? Yeah. So you can go to the site and see the telenovela so that people can learn more about electric energy and what you can do and how Sonoma Clean Power works. So I thought that was really fun.
Very good. That's fun. It's a fun way, always fun to do different ways to teach. That's great. So I had a couple of very busy weeks, and I've tried to make some notes so I don't miss any of it. But today I was honored to sign the mayor's pledge for monarch butterflies. And monarch butterfly, and I know that Mr. Ding, when he was mayor, he also did the same thing, and it's our ongoing commitment to increase the number of monarch butterflies in California and to find, and I'm going to bring it over to the climate committee to identify what are some of the ways that we can, I think we have to plant milkwood. I'm looking to Mr. Milkweed. Oh, see, this is not my thing, right? I'm doing my best. That's why Patricia's here. Milkwood, milkweed, I don't know. Anyway, we need to have sustainable plants and so forth so that the monarch butterflies flourish, and I'm going to do that in my home as well. So they're going to, apparently I won't get this until November or something, but anyway, so we signed that pledge. It was really exciting, and there was a young woman who did this as part of her Girl Scouts badges, and so we took pictures in front of City Hall today, and it was lovely. We are also, and I think we'll talk about this more in the city manager reports, but we will apply for a grant with the local aging and disability action plan, which will make Sonoma an age and disabled friendly city. It's also for Santa Rosa, and it's a $200,000 grant. I went to the Sonoma Transportation Authority, Sonoma County Transportation Authority. We talked again, there will be a roundabout on 116 and 121 down, I think you know that intersection pretty well, don't you, Mr. Vice Mayor? And I told them if they're going to put a roundabout there, make sure you have a sign that pops up and says flooded in one direction, because that's usually what happens. But they should be starting on that fairly soon. There's also a bill that was passed a few years ago to somehow do something with vehicle miles traveled and try to recoup the energy that is wasted in one place and move it to another place. And they don't know how they're going to do it, and I don't know how they're going to do it, but we went through the bill, and sometimes all the best of intentions pretty hard to actually put into reality. We also talked a lot, since we were talking about vehicle miles traveled, that now, as many know, since the COVID emergency regulations have been lifted, we have to go to all meetings in person. And that's not just city council meetings, that's all the meetings that everybody has just reported on here because they're under the Brown Act. And that has caused quite a bit of concern because we were meeting virtually because it's not just our city, it's Cloverdale, Healdsburg, and so forth, and talk about vehicle miles traveled. Some of the meetings take place in San Francisco, and we're urging the legislature to please take a look at Senate Bill 144, which would allow agencies to have an option. Right now, you have sort of two times you can say, you're sick, or you've got a family member, or there's an emergency. You get twice a year that you're allowed to participate remotely if that happens to you. But we've all lived through the COVID era, and we know that we can work remotely, and a lot of the committees are really rebelling against this going back to the old way. In fact, I heard in the continuum of care, which you were on, Mr. Ding, I heard that they actually voted, and you can confirm or deny, or that you will continue to meet remotely. I heard there was a vote to that effect. Is that true?
That is true.
Yeah, and so they've just decided to go rogue. So, I'm just like, we'll wait and see what happens. Yes, they need to put more on the consent agenda, and they're meeting virtually even though they're not supposed to. And so is the Marin Sonoma Mosquito Abatement District. So anyway, we'll see what happens. It's kind of,
Sonoma Clean Power is also designated its CEO to go ahead and act on legislation
All right.
supporting a bill that would allow us to, meet remotely.
right. So, which brings me to my question. I'm hearing that you're hearing this in all of your other committees and commissions, and without objection, I'd like to draft a letter from the city asking also for a little leeway for our meetings. Do I have any objection to that? Okay, so we'll do that because all of our committees and commissions are doing that, and I think it would be helpful if we had a letter from the city. I've also met with the chamber regarding bike racks. We have a bike lane. We don't have any bike racks. That doesn't make any sense. So we're going to be working on bike racks, and the chamber has and the Visitors Bureau are working with us to identify some places with businesses to make it bike-friendly businesses. So we're pretty excited about that. I'm so excited to hear that the bathrooms at Depot Park are doing well. And I know we're making good progress on the ones on the plaza. I've been chiming in frequently, and people are adding me on Facebook saying, Sandra, the bathrooms aren't finished yet. And I say, I know, we're getting there. Hang in there with us. But we are. Things are making progress, and we're going to have actual mirrors in there, not those pieces of metal that you find on the highway at a rest stop or in your local county jail. So we will have actual mirrors, and so you'll be able to fix your makeup and your hair and all that. So that is my report. Thank you so much. And if I forgot anything, it will be in the city manager's report, who is next. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and Council. Yes, I'll have some additions to that. I do thank the Bocce folks for reporting on that. I had a council member also report on that the Depot Park bathrooms were clean. And we've also been cracking down on the janitorial service for this facility. So it's cleaner today, thank you, Rebecca, thank you, Mike, than it was at the Parks and Recreation Open Space meeting. So, Plaza. So over the next week, we'll be doing some paint. This will be in the women's bathroom first. There will be some paint. The mirrors will be installed. Other hardware will be installed. We will be installing the hooks in each of the bathroom areas so people can hang purses and so on. There will be some adjustments that we need to make because right now your soap dispensers are where the mirrors are going to go. So we also need to make sure we're ADA compliant. One would not know that public bathrooms and where the mirrors are have to be ADA required, meet ADA requirements, but they do. So we should see improvement in all that this next week, and then we have other incremental changes coming. I had one of the community members I met with this week, and as you know, the community members of Sonoma are intelligent and opinionated, which I appreciate. I really do, because I learn things. And so what this person was telling me, and I mentioned it to some of you before, is don't let perfection be an obstacle for action. In other words, you can sit around and saying, so how do we want that bathroom really to be? I mean, well, you know, it could be this, could be that. And 6 months later, we have a study, and then a year later, it's not done. So we're going to act. We're going to try some things, and we will adjust it as we learn. So we may do some incremental things and so on, but it's one of the many things I appreciate about this community. And I will definitely keep informed. I had a question, a very good question from a council member yesterday. Where is the city's money? And it's at West America Bank and with LAIF. LAIF is a state agency, so it's secure. And I believe, and Liz can correct me here, but I believe at West America Bank, the government, local government deposits are fully collateralized. So you can relax there. Yes, the letter is a letter of support for a grant that somebody else is writing related to the aging efforts. And for those who've been interested in the second cannabis dispensary, the April 3rd agenda is very full. So I've moved that to April 19th, which is less full, because I figure there will be a rigorous discussion. And I like keeping our meetings reasonably 3 hours when possible. So I just want the council to know, but I know the public looks in on this too. And that's my report, unless there's questions.
Any questions for the city manager? Yes, sir.
Could we get some T-shirts that have the "Don't let perfection be an excuse for inaction" or action?
Sure.
Yeah.
I
Beautiful.
will make a note
T-shirts.
of that. No, it was very good. This
Yeah.
person just said, sometimes I feel
Yeah.
this way in this. It's a resonance, you know. So, good line for me.
Very good.
Thank
Excellent. And we love the fact that lots of action is taking place. I mean, we've identified our priorities. We know what they are. And so when things come up that meet our priorities, we're just going ahead and getting them
I'm going
done.
to try some things, yeah.
Yeah, and
We'll do the same with the bike racks, man.
and we'll do the same with the bike racks. We don't need, we know what they are. And I just really want to thank the Chamber and the Visitors Bureau they've just been tremendous partners for us, doing a lot of the research and background on it and checking out all the different sites and that we can have, and it's going to be really great. Okay, city attorney comments. Anything to share with us?
I have no comments this evening.
All right, thank you. And so now we're at presentations, and I am so excited about this one. So this is a proclamation proclaiming March 2023 as Youth Arts Month in the city of Sonoma. And I just can't tell you how wonderful it is to sit here. I got here early so I could spend a lot of time looking at all of the artwork, and it's just fantastic to see all of the things that the youth of our community have come up with. And so we have this proclamation that I'm going to present. I'm going to present it to Connie, and also I want to shout out the fact that the school board president, Ann Ching, is here, and I'd like Ann to come forward and thank her and her staff for all the good work. And I'm not going to read through the whole proclamation, but the first whereas is the study of visual and performing arts leads to a fuller, more meaningful, creative life. And arts education provides substantial educational benefits for every elementary, middle, and secondary student. And that it's just so true that we are more than just 9 to 5 doing our daily work. I mean, art is just so enriching and so powerful. And I was on the radio today on the KSVY radio, and I just told them when I was a kid, if I didn't have an outlet, I mean, I would have gotten in so much trouble. I've gotten in enough trouble, but I would have gotten in more trouble. And I was really lucky that every single day I spent every single afternoon at the dance studio, and I did my homework there, and I did everything there. And that was my family, and that was my outlet. And I think for art, that is so meaningful for so many kids. And I'm so proud to be able to be looking out at this artwork. And I want to invite everybody up who had something to do with this to come forward. I know Connie wants to get a picture, and I want to present her, Connie and the Creative Bridges and Cheryl and everybody, this proclamation.
I should add, Mayor, while you're coming up,
Please.
I want to thank Rebecca and the Public Works crew for the 4 hours they spent making sure this got up appropriately.
Oh my God, thank you so much. How about an applause for these guys? Yeah. Some of the good ideas that we come up with require staff to all of a sudden learn how to be, art people and hanging pictures, and they've just jumped right in, and I so appreciate it. Thank you, and thank you for saying that. It's so important.
Absolutely. I'll be.
Introduce yourself and introduce the team.
Okay, I'm Connie Schleilein, and this is a group of Creative Bridges, 36 nonprofits that have come together, working in partnership with the school district to improve and expand arts education in our schools for all kids. I'll let everybody do that. Yeah, please. Yeah, please.
Walt Williams, Creekside High School.
Robin Muscardini from Visual Thinking Strategies.
Hi, Cheryl Shimmick from Sonoma Plein Air.
Hi, I'm Vanessa Rungland from the Sonoma Community Center.
Ann Ching, School Board President.
We're all going to get together. Yeah, we want a picture of a group.
How are we gonna be here? Let's just do it. All right. Yeah, looks formal. Yeah. You want to hold this or I'll hold this? Yeah, together. Everybody get in here. Don't make signs in back of us or anything.
Bunny ears.
Power pose.
John, it's progress, not perfection. That's the T-shirt. We've been doing it at Creekside for a lot of years. So.
I knew it sounded, there was something there. The enemy of the good or something like that. Is that the saying?
Yes.
Don't let perfect be the enemy of the good? Yeah.
Voltaire.
Yeah. Voltaire. Oh, all right. Well, very good. Excellent. All right. So now we have another proclamation, and it is National Surveyors Week in the city of Sonoma. And is Phil Danskin here to receive this? Why don't you come forward, Phil, and thank you. So this is National Surveyors Week in the city of Sonoma, and I'll just read the first whereas to you. Surveying has been an essential element in the development of the human environment since the beginning of recorded history, and its requirement in the planning and execution of nearly every form of construction, with its most familiar modern uses in the fields of transport, building and construction, communications, mapping, and the definition of legal boundaries for land ownership. And I think we've all seen surveyors out there, and we know the important task. So, Phil, if you'd like to say a few words, and I'd like to bring you this.
Yeah.
Yes, please.
And I brought some show and tells. I don't know
Oh, show and tell, we love
if
it.
you're interested in it or not. Some surveyor stakes that are about 60 to 80 years old.
Wow.
Be happy to look at them.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you for acknowledging the profession of surveying.
Yeah.
We really appreciate that, in that we have a difficult time finding people that will go into surveying. We're kind of like the airlines can't find pilots, surveyors can't find people to replace us. So if you know any young people or any teachers that could get some kids into surveying, we would love it because we really need it. And as you all know, the Mount Rushmore has 3 surveyors and that other guy. And we have Washington, Jefferson, and Lincoln. And in surveying, we are basically very tied to law. And so in Sonoma in particular is part of the Rancho Petaluma, which was General Vallejo's. And the patent of lands, of grant of lands in the Petaluma Rancho by Vallejo deals with Spanish land grants and Spanish law. Then we have to deal with state law, and we have to deal with Civil Code of Procedures, Civil Code, the Subdivision Map Act, and the Land Surveyors Act, which we are bound to adhere to. And as my daughter-in-law gave me a T-shirt once, and this kind of sums up what we do. I am a land surveyor. I solve problems you don't know you have, and I solve them in ways you don't know, you can't understand. And as an example of that, I have certain clients that would like to call up and say, hey, stake out my lot. I have 3 assessor parcel numbers. I want you to stake out one. I'd like to sell that lot. And I have to make sure that that lot is legal and separate. And the Subdivision Map Act says that in 1972, all lands were merged. If you were across a railroad, across the street, whatever, that's your property. You can't do it unless you go through a subdivision or if the property has previously been subdivided. So what we have to do is go through a certificate of compliance to prove to the governing agency that it's a legal and separate lot, and it's a big deal. So that's where and I solve them in ways you don't understand because it becomes a big, monstrous thing. So that's it from me. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Yeah. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay.
We learned a lot.
Oh, well, yeah, I could talk for hours on that. Thank you much.
All right. That was very interesting. Did we return the items? I hope the artifacts of surveying. Let's make sure we do that. The ancient artifacts, right? So next on the agenda, we have a presentation from the Sonoma Water Agency on fiscal year 23-24 proposed budget and water transmission system. And Mr. Berger.
Yeah, that's going to, thank you, Mayor, and good evening, council members. That's going to be given by Lynn Roselli, the Administrative Services Division Manager, and Jake Spalding, the Finance Manager with Sonoma County Water. So with that, we'll try to turn it over.
There we go. Jake, you should be good to go.
Oh, and can you hear me?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Thank you. So good evening, Mayor Lowe and council members. Thank you for having us here tonight. My name is Jake Spalding. I'm going to be giving the presentation that Lynn and I put together. And what I'm going to do is provide you with a quick brief overview of our water transmission system proposed budget and rates for fiscal year 23-24. So each year, Sonoma Water does develop a budget, and we develop it to meet, the needs of the water transmission system's operations, our maintenance, our capital needs, and our regulatory demands. And this year, similar to last year, we have a heightened need for infrastructure repairs and upgrades so that we can continue to, maintain the system and to reliably operate it 24/7. There we go. So real quick, the Sonoma Water has three main aqueducts. We have the Santa Rosa Aqueduct, which is shown in purple on the map, the Petaluma Aqueduct, which is shown in blue, and then the Sonoma Aqueduct, which serves your community, which is in green on the map. The water contractors are each located off of one of these three main aqueducts, and per the terms of the restructured agreement, they pay the rate associated with that aqueduct. So each year, we submit a draft budget to the TAC Ad Hoc Budget Subcommittee. We do this in mid-January, and then we engage in a transparent and collaborative process with all the water contractors before bringing the budget to Sonoma Water's board in April. The restructured agreement does require that Sonoma Water's board adopt the rates by the end of April each year. And, I do just want to say thank you to City of Sonoma staff for your participation and input in the process this year at both the TAC and the TAC budget subcommittee levels. So thank you, Mike. Sonoma Water's water transmission system is pretty complicated. It's comprised of multiple funds that are shown on the slide here. Each one of these funds does have its own budget and rate, and they're all then combined to come up with the overall rate for each one of the separate aqueducts. So real quick, Sonoma Water, we have a relatively robust water system, but we are facing several challenges that are not unique to us in the industry. Most of our facilities are now 45 to 65 years old. They've expended much of their useful life. In fact, 40% of them, of our infrastructure currently has only 10 to 20% of its useful remaining life remaining. And not too different than, owning an aging car, maintenance needs increase with age. We do implement an ongoing preventative maintenance program, but, in the last couple of years, we have seen corrective maintenance and emergency repairs start to tick up. And that's really just a sign of the age of the system. And then in addition to the age of our system, our infrastructure is vulnerable to, an array of natural hazards, the biggest being flood, fire, and earthquakes. Earthquakes are our single greatest threat in terms of extensive damage to the system that could be caused and also service disruptions to the communities we serve. So I'm saying all this just to say that the budget that we're presenting today does include efforts to address all of these challenges we're facing. They're not anything that can be solved in a single year, but they are something that we are addressing with each year's budget. So what's in Sonoma Water's budget this year? Well, on the capital side, we've actually completed a couple, or will be completing a couple key hazard mitigation projects this fiscal year. And then we budgeted $6.3 million for next fiscal year for additional hazard mitigation projects. On this slide, there are a couple projects that do affect Sonoma, the Sonoma AQ customers. In addition, we have been able to secure roughly $10 million in FEMA grant funds to fund some of these hazard mitigation projects in the past, and we are seeking additional federal and state money to help offset the cost of these in the future. Also on the capital budget side, we have $5.9 million for other capital projects that increase resiliency and reliability within the system. The projects you see on the screen here do include $1.1 million in offsetting grant revenue in the fiscal year 23-24 budget. So when you add the hazard mitigation projects that were on the last slide, along with the resiliency projects on this slide, we're proposing a total capital budget for fiscal year 23-24 of $12.3 million. The budget does include $40.4 million for operations and maintenance projects. We've highlighted just a couple of the high priority projects on this slide for you. Some of them include multi-phase aqueduct cathodic protection programs, which help prevent corrosion in the aqueducts. a 10-year, $88 million tank maintenance, recoating, and rehabilitation program, which also includes security improvements on some of our infrastructure. And the projects that you see on this slide, they're our highest priority projects. They're integral to maintaining our aging infrastructure and ensuring water supply and system reliability. In what we call the sub-funds, we do have $9.78 million in costs going towards the biological opinion, water supply planning, and water conservation. Note on the biological opinion side, the Dry Creek Habitat Enhancement Project continues to make progress. We're implementing phases 4, 5, and 6 with the Army Corps, and we are experiencing significant cost savings because the Army Corps is picking up 65% of those project costs. This year's budget also does include a $150,000 match contribution to go towards a Potter Valley project, Russian River Water Forum grant that we just submitted to DWR. If that grant does get awarded, additional match would be provided by the County of Sonoma, County of Mendocino, and also Sonoma Water's Russian River Projects Fund. And lastly, I know that you're all aware of the very robust and successful water conservation and education programs that Sonoma Water runs with all the water contractors. This year's budget, we are seeking an additional $3.8 million in grant funds from Department of Water Resources that if successful, it will allow us to implement additional beneficial water conservation and reuse initiatives. So on this slide, you can see that total proposed budget for the year is going to be $68.3 million. That's going to be offset by $18.15 million in grants, use of fund balance, and bond proceeds. We're showing it here compared to last fiscal year's budget. And as you can see on the slide, the total budget is roughly $3.5 million less than the previous year. That's mostly due to some significant budget reduction measures that I'll briefly talk about on another slide. You'll see that there is one line item that is going up. The operations and maintenance fund is going up by 4.4%. And that's really just a reflection of the significant infrastructure maintenance and repair needs that we discussed earlier. And all the other budgets are showing reductions. This slide is just to show you where the majority of our costs go. Almost 60% of our costs go towards operations and maintenance of the system, followed by capital projects, the sub-funds, and then finally debt service coming in at about 9%. So I did want to give you just a real quick primer on how our rates are calculated, and this is a very simplified version of it, but in essence, we divide the cost of operations and maintenance of the system by the amount of water sold. And per the restructured agreement that all the contractors are signatories to, we're required to use either the last 3 years annual average or the last 12 months of actual water deliveries. This year, the last 12 months of water deliveries was significantly lower than the 3-year average. And so when you carry that through, you come out to a total cost of about $1,173 per acre foot. That's actually not the value on the Sonoma Aqueduct, but it's just there for an example to show you, that our rate is fully volumetric. And what that means is, all else being equal, when we are budgeting against lower deliveries as we are this year, the rate is going to be higher and vice versa. And of note, the budgeted deliveries for this fiscal year at 41,847, that's actually 8.5% lower than the amount of deliveries that we had in the budget last year. Meaning that, the rate increase you'll see on a future slide, about 90% of that rate increase is actually associated just with the amount of water being delivered going down. So, Sonoma Water knows that rate increases are not something anyone wants to pass. We took all the efforts that we could to help reduce the rate. To do that, in addition to lowering the budget overall by $3.5 million, we did increase the rate. Initially our rate increase was looking like it was going to be over 20%. We started to look at projects, we prioritized them, we deferred about $2.4 million in lower priority maintenance projects that could be deferred. We trimmed budgets everywhere we could. Recently utility expenses for us have started to come down, and so we've been able to find some savings in that cost category. And then we also, significantly increased the use of grants, bond proceeds, and fund balance this year. In addition to that, water contractors do have a discretionary capital charge on the aqueducts. which you'll see on another slide, and some of the aqueducts did elect to reduce that. And lastly, I just want to mention, this year we are using $1.5 million of our prudent reserve to cover anticipated revenue shortfalls because deliveries are coming in significantly under budget from the previous year. In fact, right now we're forecasting revenue shortfall of about $4 to $6 million. And at a future date when it wouldn't have such a big impact on the rate, the Water Advisory Committee would want to consider replenishing this fund for future use. So this slide shows you the rates by aqueduct based on that delivery number of 41,847 acre feet. As you can see, rate increases for the aqueducts range from 9.42 to 10.56%. And Sonoma Aqueduct is that 10.56% you see on the right-hand side. Without the use of the fund balance and bonds and proceeds, the cost would be closer to 52% higher. Water contractors, as I mentioned, do have the discretion to set this capital charge. The contractors on the Sonoma Aqueduct did elect to reduce their charge this year. And, and that charge really is there as both a rate stabilization tool, and then it also helps to build fund balance for future projects so you don't have spikes in future years. So the rate was brought down, which brought you Sonoma Aqueduct's rate increase on par with the Santa Rosa Aqueduct. And once again, just, because our rate is fully volumetric, 90% of that increase is attributable to the reduction in deliveries between last fiscal year and this fiscal year. The remaining 10% is attributable to the increased maintenance needs, really to address the deferred maintenance that's happened the last couple of years as we took steps to help reduce the rate because of the natural hazards that were happening and because of the pandemic. Overall, our rate increases for the last 5 and 10-year periods have been under 5%. So this is an increase from those historical averages. What does the future hold? Well, our long-range financial plan includes about $270 million between now and the year 2030 for projects that would affect the rate on the Sonoma Aqueduct. The majority of them are hazard mitigation and resiliency projects as well as maintenance projects. Right now, this is a very conservative model that we're showing you here. It is anticipating 4 years of elevated rate increases north of 10%, which would then moderate down to a little over 6.5% in out years. This model includes assumptions about growth and deliveries, but it doesn't include any grant funding, which would help to reduce rates. And Sonoma Water has been very successful in acquiring grant funds for both hazard mitigation and other projects to help bring that cost down for the water contractors. Lastly, this slide we show every year, it does just compare our water rates to other wholesale water contractors in the Bay Area. You can see Sonoma County Water Agency, now known as Sonoma Water, is on the left-hand side. We do still have some of the lowest cost water in the area. I'd note also that all these agencies, they're experiencing the same budgetary pressures that Sonoma Water is. Everyone's been experiencing the lower deliveries, because of the drought and because of restrictions on reducing water use. So while many of them, are still in the process of setting their rates, we are hearing both from published reports and from talking to them that they're pursuing rate increases between 5.5 and 15%, which would actually raise the cost on this chart even further. Real quick, next steps. Right now, Lynn and I are presenting to town councils and water district boards. We'll then bring it to the Water Advisory Committee for a vote on April 3rd and finally take it to Sonoma Water's board for adoption on April 18th. And so, I just, that's the end of the presentation, but I just want to, once again say, in summary, we're proposing a budget. It's 3.5% less than the previous $3.5 million less than the previous fiscal year. We have taken, several measures to help keep the rate increase as low as possible, given the low deliveries and the requirements that we have in the restructured agreement. That includes the deferred projects of $2.4 million, increasing the use of offsetting revenue from grants, bonds, and fund balance, utilizing that agreement we have with the Army Corps to pick up 65% of the cost share on the Dry Creek project. And then, the rate was further reduced because the contractors on the Sonoma Aqueduct were able to reduce their discretionary capital charge as well. So, the proposed rate increase, it's necessary for us to invest in critical infrastructure improvements, to pick up on the deferred maintenance that's been going on, to implement drought-related water reliability projects, and really to remain prepared for natural hazards. So with that, Lynn and I are available for questions, and then we can pass it back to you.
Thank you so much for the report. Are there any questions from the council regarding this report? Mr. Wellender.
I'm just curious, this is maybe not directly related, but given the amount of rain we've had this year, what is our overall supply? Is that something that you at least are aware of in terms of replenishing our sources?
Yeah, so our reservoir, Lake Sonoma, is very full, and in fact, they're planning on making some releases. So in terms of water supply, we're doing pretty well this year compared to prior years. We're expecting yet another atmospheric river to be on the way. So we expect that, that we're having a fairly good year, and it looks like it's certainly making a major dent in the extreme critical drought conditions that we had previously.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think we were all asking that question somewhat during that report. Anyone else have any questions? Mr. Ding, please.
Thank you so much for your great presentation. And that is the year by year that is similar. I really appreciate your time frame. And right now we just prepare next 6 years. I have another question regarding, and because you just introduced 4 different potential risk facing to us, but we don't have enough financial resources to fix those. For example, aging equipment, many repairs. I'm wondering if you have any reserved fund to cover this in the future expenses.
So there are a couple of reserve funds. One is the capital charge reserve fund. So and that is the discretionary charge that Jake was referring to, and that's the aqueduct capital charge, and that is for making improvements, repairs, upgrades to each of the aqueducts. So the Sonoma Aqueduct, that capital charge that we showed, that was $34.90 per acre foot. That is meant to build reserves for capital projects on the Sonoma Aqueduct. We also are required to maintain a minimum 3-month reserve, operating reserve, and we are successfully being able to do that. We have a prudent reserve as well that Jake mentioned that we're able to draw from when we have severe conditions like 3 years of drought conditions that have severely impacted deliveries. But we do not have any kind of an emergency fund that's built up that would help if there was some catastrophic event. The restructured agreement for water supply does not speak to having that kind of a fund. But what we do is, Jake showed you that graph of future rate increases and projections. And what we would do is not only look for grant funding to offset some of those costs, but also look for financing. So there's a lot of financing built into that. So we would seek bond funding to help spread the costs over a number of years, as well as grant funding to offset some of those costs.
Thank you. And out in the city, 85% relying on Russian River and the water resource. And we were told, and we still have potentially, in a long term, we have the issue of Potter Valley project issue, PG&E. So I'm wondering, we are concerned, we are not happy right now for the current water rate, that is wonderful. But we still are very much concerned. Yeah, can you explain a little bit financially, or?
Are you referring to our water supply reliability? Is that your question?
Mm-hmm.
the water supply reliability, one of the projects that's funded under the water transmission system is called the Regional Water Resiliency Plan. And that plan is in coordination and collaboration with all the water contractors. All the water contractors are providing input on that plan, and it looks at water supply resiliency throughout the region and trying to identify alternatives and water supply scenarios and projects that would benefit the region and build more water supply resiliency into the system. And we actually did an expedited, during the drought, the water contractors asked that we actually infuse even more effort into looking at drought resiliency projects. And so we did that, and Don Seymour, our water resources engineer, who is heading up that project, has made some presentations at the technical advisory committee level to present some of the alternatives that are being looked at to build water supply resiliency. And that project is ongoing. So we looked a lot at the drought resiliency, but we're also looking at other water supply resiliency projects associated with hazard mitigation and other natural disasters and that kind of thing. And that's a major effort there. We're also involved in the Potter Valley project, and Jake mentioned that there is some money that a cost share that is being applied to a grant that we're seeking under the Department of Water Resources, the state urban drought relief program. And it's called the Russian River Forum, a water forum, and that is made up of, the water contractors and other stakeholders to actually look at, the Potter Valley project and the future of the Potter Valley project and, the future of the two basin solution that they've been looking into. So I think we're making a lot of progress. There's STIGMA, there's the groundwater sustainability agencies. They're all looking at groundwater resources. We have one project that's actually aquifer storage and recovery in our Santa Rosa Plain production wells. And so we're going to be looking at, aquifer storage and recovery, basically, looking at, making sure that we can put winter water into our production wells so that we can pump that water when it's needed, during peak seasons in the summer and during droughts. So I think we're making a lot of progress from the water supply front and water supply reliability. We definitely are very concerned and interested in pursuing options and projects regionally and with the water contractors, collaboratively with the water contractors going forward.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Yes, Ms. Ferrar-Rivas, questions?
Yeah, I have one that you may have answered already, but I might need a little more explanation for this. But understanding how you charge for water, and that reality is, yes, we may have full reservoirs right now, but we're still in a drought. And we'll probably be continuing to look at, consumers using less water. And if we look at that issue statewide or nationwide, water resources will become fewer and fewer over the decades. How do you plan for that, considering that your revenue is based on water usage, but at the same time, the goal is to have people use less water?
Well, that's a very good question. That's a very big challenge. As we are constrained by the restructured agreement, and the restructured agreement provides or prescribes a fully volumetric rate. And so all of the work that we do, all of the capital projects that we do, all of the water supply planning that we do, all of the operations and maintenance projects that we have to do to maintain all of the infrastructure and upgrade all the infrastructure is all based on that water rate that is a volumetric rate. And what we do is when we actually are able to, so we can't predict how much water we're going to sell in any given year. We don't know how much the water contractors are going to take from Sonoma Water or from the Russian River versus their own sources of their own local sources of water. So we don't really know. And so the restructured agreement prescribes that we have to budget based on, as Jake said, the lower of the 12 months or last 3 years of water deliveries. So we're looking back at past water deliveries and saying we're budgeting based on those past deliveries. And As a result, if we end up selling more water than what we budgeted, then we take that water, those funds, and we build up some fund balance. And we use that fund balance in years when we have droughts. And so we're able to offset rate increases by using that fund balance in years when there's a drought. We're in the third year of a drought, so we're really constrained because we've already used a lot of the fund balance that we had built up in previous years. But yes, I mean, the message is that we do want people to conserve water. And it does actually keep rates more reasonable than if they were not conserving water, because then we would have to build much larger, bigger infrastructure that's much more expensive. But we are, but we do want people to conserve, yes, and when we do sell less water, we have less revenue, and that does constrain how much we can do going forward. But we also try to look at using fund balance, financing projects where we can, capital projects where we can, and seeking grant revenue to offset any costs. So it's a combination of those things that help us move forward and do the work that we do. And we have had some years where we've actually sold more water and had a little bit of a surplus, and we're able to put that back into the system and keep rates lower. Does that answer your question? Or
Yeah, thank you very much. I appreciate the work that you're doing very much. Thank you.
Very good. Mr. Vice Mayor, any questions? There's no questions from me. Thank you for the presentation, and we look forward to learning more. And there were several things on there regarding, I saw something about dye tabs to check if you have leakage. I mean, do we call Mr. Berger, or who do we call? I mean, it says to call to get them. Who do we call?
That's all part of the Sonoma Marin Water Saving Partnership, and there's
Okay.
information on that website.
On the website. Okay, so we'll refer people to that, and I'm gonna test pilot it and let you know how it goes, because I'm suspicious that I might have a leak somewhere. I just don't know why, but I think I do. And so everybody should test that as well. All right. Thank you again for a very thorough report and good questions from the City Council. Very good. So we'll move on. And we're now at the presentation. Any comments from the public, by the way, on this item? I meant to ask. Or on Zoom regarding the water agency? No. Okay. Very good. All right. So moving on, we have a presentation on the City of Sonoma regulations pertaining to vacation rentals. And we have Ms. Tierney to walk us through. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
I will do an opening, Madam
Thank
Mayor,
you.
just
Yeah.
set the stage for Christina. Several council members have come to me and said we need to see where we are here. What kind of triggered it was the question of transferring the use permit for a vacation rental when the property was sold, which is not like what the county does. So I asked Christina and Laura to put something together that will tell the council and the public what is currently in place in terms of policies here. And also we included in there what other jurisdictions are doing right around us to get an idea. And what we're looking for is any questions that you think you've been hearing from the public or yourself, and also if there's any particular direction of where you want us to go to make any changes that might be there. And obviously our attorney's with us too, if you have questions of Mr. Ruderman. So with that.
Thank you. Thank you for the introduction. Ms. Tierney, please.
Thank you. So I'm going to take a little bit of a step back and do a little planning 101. We'll start with vacation rentals, and I also have some other background information just to educate anyone who is interested. So a vacation rental is a specific term that is defined in our Sonoma Municipal Code. And a vacation rental means the rental of up to 2 complete residential units containing bedrooms, kitchens, and bathrooms for a period of less than 30 days. There is no requirement for an on-site manager. And the current regulations were updated in December 4th of 2017 when the City Council adopted essentially a vacation rental ban, which prohibited new vacation rentals. The only venue for or avenue for new vacation rentals to be permitted is through our historic structures, through our adaptive reuse provision. So if you have a historic building, you can go through a use permit process and obtain a vacation rental through that avenue. The vacation rental regulations state that existing licensed vacation rentals are allowed to continue, provided that they meet operating standards. And a large part of the reason for that is maybe not most, but many of the existing vacation rentals were permitted through the use permit process. And so they have valid use permits, and our use permits run with the land. So we also have a bed and breakfast permit. You can obtain a bed and breakfast in our commercial, gateway commercial, hillside residential, rural residential, and low-density residential zoning districts. And the definition of a bed and breakfast is, this is also a residential structure similar to a vacation rental, and that has implications for the building code and ADA and some other things like that. So a bed and breakfast means a residential structure with one family or resident manager in permanent residence. So that's really the big difference between a vacation rental and a B&B, is that a B&B has an on-site manager. A B&B is limited to up to 5 bedrooms rented overnight, and food service is limited to breakfast for registered overnight guests only. Cooking facilities and individual rental rooms are prohibited, and anything over 5 guest rooms would be considered a hotel or a motel. And so this is a current option for residents of the city, and we recently approved one over on 4th Street East at the Sebastiani House. We also have a hotel or motel, and the big difference between a vacation rental, a B&B, and a hotel motel is that a hotel or motel would be considered a commercial use, and so there's different building standards. So there's some of our favorites downtown. So a hotel or motel means facilities with guest rooms or suites provided with or without kitchen facilities rented to the general public for transient lodging, less than 30 days. Hotels provide access to most guest rooms from an interior walkway and typically include a variety of services in addition to lodging. For example, restaurants, meeting facilities, personal services. Motels provide access to most guest rooms from an exterior walkway and also include accessory guest facilities such as swimming pools, tennis courts, athletic facilities, and accessory retail uses. So a hotel or motel would be allowed with a use permit in mixed use, commercial, and gateway commercial zoning districts, so they would not be allowed in a residential zoning district. And just also wanted to take a moment to highlight a timeshare use. This is commonly known as the Picasso, and there's other timeshare methodologies out there. So our definition for a timeshare is timeshare use or fractional interest means the use of one or more accommodations or any part thereof as a timeshare property pursuant to a timeshare plan. The City of Sonoma adopted an urgency ban banning timeshares in early 2022, and the regular ordinance was adopted on June 15th, 2022. So this is a use that is prohibited in all zoning districts. Just take a second. So this is our current vacation rental regulations are contained in Sonoma Municipal Code section 1950-110. And this is kind of outlines all of the permit and operational requirements. And I believe most of the interest lately has been with the last provision, which I have highlighted, which states that licensed vacation rentals, so existing licensed vacation rentals shall be allowed to continue as legal non-conforming uses, provided they comply with the requirements set forth in the sections above. And basically it means that if they have a valid business license and have been registered and pay transit occupancy tax, then if somebody wanted to sell, that vacation rental permit would transfer, use permit would transfer to the property owner. Everything else is pretty standard. There's internet requirements for advertising and fire safety, signage, noise ordinance. So we currently have about 50 vacation rentals in the city of Sonoma. There are 15 in the commercial zoning district. There are 8 in the mixed use zoning district. We have 1 in hillside residential and 9 in low density residential and 19 in medium density residential. This is a little bit busy, but this is the list of all of our approved vacation rentals. And so so there's two tables I put side by side just for ease on the PowerPoint. On the left is the name of the operator or property name. Then we have the address, the zoning district, the number of units, the date that it was approved, and the type of approval. So the first line for 11 East Napa Street is approved through a use permit. We have others that were grandfathered in where they were vacation rentals prior to the requirement for them to obtain a use permit. For example, 151 East Napa Street, that was an adaptive reuse. So that's a historic building that went through our adaptive reuse process. And so it's pretty well scattered between grandfathered use permits, and there was really only a few that are grandfathered maybe. That's all of them, and this is all on our. We have a website dedicated to vacation rentals in the city of Sonoma. It includes all the information of the ones that are legal and how what the requirements are for them to have their annual renewal kind of move forward. So staff did do some research to try to look at what other jurisdictions are doing. The county recently went through an ordinance update. So we looked at Sonoma County, Napa City, Healdsburg, and St. Helena. So Sonoma County has been in the news a lot lately with their updates. They've been very active. The current update they have a difference between hosted and non-hosted permits, and the hosted permits expire automatically. I think they all expire automatically on the sale or transfer of a vacation rental or hosted property, and so it's more of a license where it doesn't transfer and run with the land. So property owners who have sold their properties are required to inform the planning department so that they're not held liable for any code enforcement uses once it's been sold. There is an annual monitoring fee. And the county also has a certified property manager requirement. So all vacation rental permits are required to have 24-hour contact information with a certified property manager who's passed an exam and pays a fee. And so the new update prohibits vacation rentals in low-density residential areas. It established caps in areas of concentration. So in the Sonoma Valley, there's caps for several areas of the Sonoma Valley in particular. And they have a limitation on corporate ownership and limitations that there's one license per property owner. But this is for new vacation rentals, not for existing ones. So Napa County has a ban on short-term rentals. They're prohibited in all residential and agricultural zoning districts. I couldn't figure out if they were allowed in the other zoning districts, but I believe they have an outright ban. The term that Napa County uses is transient commercial occupancies of dwelling units. So it's a little bit tricky to track that down in the code. And that means the commercial use of a dwelling for a period of time less than 30 days. And there's some exceptions to that, which are farm worker housing, daycares, things like that. But so the Napa County has an outright ban. They did have a grand jury report recently, and there have been a lot of code enforcement cases that have been very active. So the city of Napa has both a hosted accommodations, meaning that the owner resides on the site, and non-hosted. And they have a cap set, which is interesting. So for example, the cap for hosted accommodations is 60, and the cap for non-hosted is 41. And for a hosted accommodation, no more than 2 bedrooms are rented for transient occupancy. And transferability is not allowed for hosted. And they have a wait list. So once they hit that 60, they take a wait list and then open it up for people who want to be considered for application. So a non-hosted accommodation means that the owner is not required to reside on site, and there's less of those. And those permits may be transferred to new owners. And similarly, there's a wait list for those permits. The city of Healdsburg has a use permit that runs with the land and would be valid upon transfer of the property. the owner or manager has to live on site or in the immediately adjacent to the dwelling. There's a prohibition that accessory dwelling units cannot be converted into overnight lodging, and only one lodging is allowed per block unless separated by 500 feet. So that's their way of making sure there's not too many in any single spot. St. Helena has a short-term rental permit, and it has to be in the name of the owner who owns that property at the time. Similar to, to Sonoma County, only one person can only have one permit. They are non-transferable. They're limited to single-family dwellings as of the date of the permit, and the cap in St. Helena is 25 permits. So that's just a little overview of what our existing regulations are and what some jurisdictions around us are doing. And that concludes staff's presentation. We're available for questions.
Okay, very good. So we have this before us because I think a lot of questions came up, and it seems like there's a lot of activity in the county and elsewhere regarding this issue. And so I just want to get sort of a temperature check from the council in terms of things that you'd like staff to bring back for us, if anything, to see if we want to amend any portion of the current ordinance. So do we have any comments from the council regarding that? Mr. Ding, your light is on. Do you have a question or no? No question.
Not at this time.
Not at this time. Over here, Mr. Wellender, do you have any questions?
Well,
Yes.
I'd be curious, what, based upon the 50 that we have right now, what we've received from a TOT standpoint, and what are we really looking at as far as tax gain?
Do we have that?
I would look to maybe Liz or Mark if they have those information.
Do you have that handy? Perhaps that's something we can bring back? Okay, so that's a good question. We'd like to know how much we're getting. Yeah, if we're going to make any changes, we want to know what we're losing or what we're gaining, right? That's a good question. Anything else? Good one, Mr. Wellender. Anything else to ask?
I have a question.
Okay.
Go ahead.
My other one is actually, it's related, but it's to legal counsel. What's the status on the various lawsuits that have been generated from the the Picasso? There's been something up in St. Helena, there's been something in Napa. I'm just curious on where that currently stands.
Yeah, I don't have any information that any of those lawsuits have resolved at this point. From my understanding, they're probably still in discovery, at least with respect to the St. Helena one, which is the one that I had been following.
Very good. Okay, Ms. Ferrer-Rivas?
Yeah, so do we have record of what the original intent was when our ordinance was written to have the vacation rental stay with the property versus change with the property owner? Like, what was the intent? Why were people doing that? It's hard for me to decide like what's good or bad when I don't know why someone put that language in the first place.
Yeah, I'll let our city attorney answer or add on to what I'm going to say, but essentially when you have a valid use permit that runs with the land and they've been granted that already, it's a different situation than a new program where you've created it, where you have a license or a shorter term permit that has already been written and programmatically assigned to a property owner. So it would have been a change, and I don't know if do you have anything to add?
You know, I don't have any information on what the intent of the council was, because that was probably back in the early aughts when they made that change.
It was in 2017.
Well, 2017 is when they banned them.
Yeah.
But before 2017 and
Yeah.
after 99.
I think it was just a very different planning culture back then too. So the city of Sonoma's was one of the first vacation rental bans, and so a lot of these other ordinances have, they've learned lessons as the issue has gotten more and more complex. So our city council, when they adopted it in 2017, were really on the forefront of trying to preserve our housing units.
Yeah, I would be speculating, but if you wanted me to speculate, I would think it's a way that planners know how to grant permission to perform a particular use. It's easy. It fits in with the way that planners think about these types of things. And it looks like early on, before short-term rentals really became the lightning rod that they were for quite some time.
And I'll just anecdotally, I would say, as the planner who's answering the calls, this is by far the most common question we get answered. Probably 5 to 8 times a week, we get questions from people from out of town who are looking to purchase a property, and they're looking to have a second home and rent it out to make additional income. That was by far the most common question we get asked.
It's not unusual in my experience. There's a lot of, especially smaller cities, that just do the use permit process for vacation rentals.
My question is, what kind of the enforcement? Do we have it in the monitor? Because right now we have the 15 units, right? So how we can, make it sure, and beside this 50.
Yeah, I can give you a very, very brief overview,
Okay.
but our code enforcement team has a contractor, I believe, that we work with, and so they monitor all of the websites, Airbnb, VRBO, and it's pretty easy to do compliance that way because most people are online and renting through those venues.
Thank you. And also, I would like to share some information with the Councilmember Wellender and timeshare, that stuff. The last year, because we carried it out, we proved the resolution and the urgent and ordinance in the February and later on, and June, and we passed the regular ordinance, and this becomes a national on the news. So in August, and I was reached by a city mayor in South Carolina, in a small island. I forgot its name. It's a very beautiful island, and they know Pasco purchased a building, $4.5 million. They don't have any in the resolution. They try to get help from us, and then at that time the city manager, planning director, David, give them a lot of advices and help the community. Yeah, thank you.
All right. I have a couple of comments. But first, I'm sorry, Vice Mayor, do you have some before I go? Yeah, are you sure? Okay, thank you. So what happens in a situation, something is being used for a vacation rental, legit, then they sell it and then it's not used, it's used for just a residence, and then it's sold again or rented out to somebody. Does it, if there's an inactive period of time, what happens then? Does it still stay with them?
No, it would expire. So
It would expire.
Yeah, the language in the code states that they have to have I believe this is only part of it, but I believe they have to keep paying and have it continuously
Well,
used.
I think there's a difference between those vacation rentals that are identified as grandfathered, which
Grandparented,
really
because
the
we
legacy.
know who your mother is. You're never quite sure about your father.
like legacy, I would say, vacation rentals, because those are operating according to this code provision as a non-conforming use.
Mhm.
So abandonment of a non-conforming use, which is usually 1 year of not using it that way, once that happens, you lose your ability to continue operating lawfully that non-conforming use. So that's one. But a use permit,
I think this says that though, so the first line says existing licensed vacation rental shall be allowed to continue as a legal non-conforming use.
but it says
As a rental, but it's not going to be a rental
As
anymore.
of November 3rd, 1999. So I think what we would need to do is look at the use permits, because a use permit does run with the land. It is a property right. Those cannot be removed without due process. And so a simple abandonment doesn't necessarily, you don't necessarily lose your ability to continue the vacation rental in the future. So it would really be a function of how those use permits were drafted.
Okay, so there's some gray area there.
So there's two different, I think we need to distinguish between these two types of
Right.
property rights.
So I'm glad Mr. Wellender asked about the TOT tax, and I'd like to, I'm interested when that's brought back. I know we have a B&B ordinance, but we don't have anything that's similar to some of the other communities you brought up regarding hosted rentals, and I would like to say that that is something that I have found, and I've been looking at a lot of the ordinances all over the state, that in places where they have, banned them, as we have done, they have allowed the hosted rentals because the person is there, and the complaints that people normally have has to do with party houses and that sort of thing, and when somebody is on the property and there's very little risk. There's somebody there that's in their home, etc. And also they're a lot less expensive. And quite honestly, it's very difficult when people have family events in Sonoma, especially if they're in the peak season, to find an affordable place to for your family to stay for, just get-togethers, graduations and so forth. So many people have come to me and suggested that we take a look at that. I think it also, we would get TOT tax from that. And there's an opportunity perhaps for some of these folks, it might be a little bit of additional income that might help some people who are having a hard time, managing from month to month, and seniors who have an extra room and so forth. And other cities who have very, very strict codes allow this and have had no problems with it. I look specifically at Santa Monica, who's been extremely aggressive in terms of making sure that, in fact, their ordinance is the Airbnb and VRBO sites cannot even post anything without putting the permit number from the city on their posting. So they've gone, so I'd like to also please take a look at the Santa Monica ordinance, which seems to be working well, and I know they've gone through many legal challenges to it, and they've come to an agreement with the major organizations. So when we do discover, someone is operating, without paying the tax or registering with us, I know that they're asked to cease and desist, but is there any fees or anything that we collect as a result of this?
That would be a good question for code enforcement, but
Code
I can look into
enforcement.
that and get
Okay.
back
We'll
to
look
you.
at, so maybe when we come back, just look at a little bit of fiscal analysis of that. And also, I have to say that the question that did arise about the inconsistency with our ordinance and the counties, that it does seem to be that one of our priorities is housing. And if somebody sells a house and they currently are using it as a vacation rental, and it can turn into a place where people can live year-round and become citizens of Sonoma and be part of our community, that that should be our priority. And that since we don't really allow these anyway, that it should revert to housing stock. And then, but perhaps there's a way to say that since it was used in that way, but they'd have to go through the process again. Or in other words, justify the continued use. Because we have potentially at least 50 residences that if they cease doing short-term vacation rentals would be 50 potentially houses available or sites available for people to live in the city full-time. And I think that should always be something to look at as a priority for us. So I'd like to sort of get a temperature check from the council and see if they're interested in looking at something like that. And before we ask people, I don't want to ask people to do a bunch of work if everybody's like, nah, I want to keep it that way. So interested in the temperature check. And then, of course, the vice mayor, you have some questions. So.
Not really questions. I guess I'm not even, quite frankly, clear how this ended up being an issue, because I have not heard complaints about these. I have not heard a desire to move into vacation rental businesses. But regardless, it seems to me that we're opening Pandora's box. There are going to be a lot of issues here that we need to address. And while to think that if we eliminate the ability to have vacation rentals and that these houses will revert to being, housing availability for others, we've got still the grandfathered folks that where those permits are going to continue to transfer with the parcel. And I think I heard the term due process to change any of that. I am not opposed to providing the opportunity for vacation rentals. It's just I am not clear, and it's going to take a lot more discussion, I think, to really define what it should look like. And we're just one council. A previous council took an action that is now requiring us to have this conversation. So I think we need to be very careful. We need to really have a good idea of what we want to accomplish and what the goal is if we're going to open this up. And I'm not sure, quite frankly, Madam Mayor, how to get to that goal setting. So.
Well, very good point. So I guess the question is there an interest to looking at what it would take to have our ordinance be similarly structured as the county and the permit not going with the property, but with that each time it turns over that they reapply or that they no longer exist? I mean, that would be the question. And Mr. Ruderman, you can articulate it better than I did.
No,
I
just want to clarify that there is going to be a difference in the analysis if we're talking about what the city can do to cut off the ability to have a vacation rental upon sale or transfer. When you're dealing with a legal non-conforming use, those a city can end, but they have to provide the property owner time to amortize whatever their investment was in that property. So those are what we were calling the grandfathered properties, the ones that had existed in '99. If you have a use permit, use permits normally cannot be revoked unless the person violates the conditions of the use permit, and there needs to be a hearing in order for that to occur. So while there may be some flexibility with respect to grandfathered units to end those, there likely is not that ability with the ones that have a use permit, but I haven't looked at those use permits, and that would be something that we would want to do before I could give you advice about the options there.
Okay, very good. So, so that's question one. Is there an interest in pursuing further, looking at both the use permit and the grandparented in homes in making any change? If there's no interest in that, we'll move on. Any interest in that? I'm not seeing any. Okay, that's fine. That's good. That's why we have this conversation. I don't like to have people to do work if that's not where we're going.
But just reserve the right to think about it, because it is complex.
Yeah, well,
and it's a difficult
you always
answer.
have the right to think.
Yeah.
I'm not going to take that
No,
away.
I mean, yeah, I have the right. Do I have the ability? No, okay. So no, but just in regard that we could bring this back up if we want to revisit it. So I'm fine with not doing, we have a lot of priorities.
Sure.
Housing is one of them, but this doesn't seem to, since we have a cap on this, and it would be, there was 14 properties that I think that were grandfathered, right? It looked like that my quick count, it was about 14. I mean, that's what that would affect. I don't think at this time it's something that is a priority for us.
Okay, very good. Okay, that's good. The second question I have is, we definitely want to bring some figures back so we know what we're doing. I think that's fair. How about the idea of looking at hosted rental ordinances that might expand the use for people for a bedroom or two in their own home. Is there an interest in that, Mr. Wellinger?
I'd be interested in getting more details on Santa Monica. I think the one concern I would have not knowing anything more is that I would probably want to see we have a limitation on that.
Right. Like Napa has that.
Yeah.
They allow, most of the other places allow it. We're the only ones that really don't. They do have a limitation, yeah.
And part of that would be not only how do we structure it, what is the return, and it may be something too, as it has been suggested, because it is rather complex and it could be a lightning rod, that it should be something that we move forward with maybe in a very thoughtful way. And we have no guns to our head per se, but I think it's worth at least investigating.
Very good. Any other questions on that, Mr. Ding?
I'm open to make more on the homework and the research. You just mentioned Santa Monica. Sounds like we need a little bit in the activities, and also and showing and our town as welcoming, and at least close friends or more relatives or something like that. Yeah, I'm open for further, the research and see if we can get some of the good, and also especially look at the neighborhood communities, and I pretty much for sure, and the Sonoma City is different from the Santa Monica, but definitely we can learn something from the Santa Monica.
Well, also Napa. I mean,
Yes.
all of the cities that you brought up in the counties all have a hosted rental ordinance. We're really the only one that doesn't have one, and some of them have a cap, and some of them, But I mean, it is kind of glaring that we don't allow it, and the other places do. So that's and I have heard people requesting it because they look for something inexpensive, So, question, Mr. Vice Mayor.
One of each, actually. I would love to be able to charge my relatives for visiting. That's my first thing. But the other question is, how many complaints have we gotten with regards to this collection inventory that's displayed? Do we have any data on that at all?
The only data I have is my own personal experience. I've never received a complaint from vacation rentals. Any would likely, I'm sure there's some through code enforcement, but in City Hall we do field, wide variety calls all the time, all day long. I haven't personally received one. I'm not sure if the city clerk has any, but we do get, like I said, and the city clerk commented as well, that the comment we get by far the most is people need to come in, buy a house, and convert it to a vacation rental.
Thank
So
you.
there's a lot of pressure on that.
Thank you. And, I would be open to considering the hosted, whatever it is.
Yeah, and charging your relatives. I know. Exactly. No, well, I'm just hoping I can send mine to your house and you can charge them and you can send yours to my house, and that'll be the way it goes. All right. Well, I think, yes, Mr. Ruderman, you have a question? No, we'll take public comment, of course, but do you kind of get a sense of where we're going? We're sort of interested in the hosted. We'd like to know sort of financially where we're at, and there's no interest at this time of changing the transferable piece. I'm hearing that loud and clear.
Yeah, so what I have is look into Santa Monica,
Yeah.
look at the hosted,
And
look at the TOT on the 50 that are here, and that's about it.
Yeah, and I think it's, it has surfaced. I have gotten a lot of questions about it, so I really appreciate the report.
And we would think about doing how we would do the hosted without providing a use permit, so that it was an annual renewal.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
it
I mean,
wouldn't last any longer.
I'm all about, I'm all about keeping people in their homes and them being able to live here, and also I'm also interested in revenue. So if we can make sure that, people maybe make a little money, we make a little bit of money, the vice mayor's relatives are taken care of, it all seems like a good plan. All right, so let's open it up to the public. Any comments regarding this item? Which was really a presentation. Seeing none. Any on Zoom? No? Okay, very good. Well, thank you so much, and we will move along to the next item. All right, so we're on the consent calendar.
Consent.
All items on the consent calendar are considered to be routine and will be acted on by a single motion. And I'd like to see if there's any public comment on the consent calendar. Any public comment on Zoom regarding that? Is there a motion on the consent calendar, including any polls or questions? Mr. Wellender, you look like you have a question.
Yeah, I would love to pull 7.3 for at least some education as to what
All
we're
right.
doing. And then just a few very brief comments about 7.5, and that's our expenditures for the month of February.
Okay, so let's pull 7.3, and do you want to pull 7.5 for your comments? Okay, so we've got a request from Mr. Wellender to pull 7.3 and 7.5. Are there any others? Okay, seeing none, is there a motion to approve the consent calendar with the exception of 7.3 and 7.5?
Move to approve.
I second.
Okay, there's been a motion. Any questions? Okay, seeing none, can we call the roll, please?
Councilmember Dean.
Aye.
Councilmember Farrar Rivas.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Gurney.
Aye.
Councilmember Wellender.
Yes.
Mayor Lowe.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion carries unanimously.
Okay, we are on item 7.3, which is to adopt a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute a professional service agreement with R3 Consulting Group, Inc., to prepare a solid waste franchise fee assessment. And staff report, please, on 7.3. Somebody draw the short straw on this one? Thank you.
Let's see. So we're in the middle of a franchise agreement assessment, looking at the current franchise agreement. The hauler has requested an extension, and so this opened up the opportunity to look at the contract. The original franchise agreement is from 1994 with approximately 9 or 10 amendments. It's a mess. So we're in the process of doing that. So the issue that came up is there's a court case, Zoli versus the city of Oakland, and hopefully you can comment on that as necessary. Basically, what they looked at was that there was some what the court viewed as unreasonable franchise fees, significantly much higher. And just a background is we have a franchise agreement which is exclusive right for the hauler to handle the trash. And part of that is they give the city a fee for that services, for that opportunity, for that agreement. And the court found that the city of Oakland had unreasonable franchise fees. So what's going on now is, because of this court case, is we have to be certain that the franchise fee that the city is going to propose is reasonable within that court case. So what this consultant is going to do is provide that assessment as to what that franchise fee could be. And it also provides some, I guess, what's the term I'm thinking of? It helps the city, should there be any judicial action that due diligence was undertaken. Is that correct? Okay. So this company would, this consulting firm would perform that service for the city.
Thank you. So you pulled this, Mr. Wellender. What did this answer your question? Or
Sort of, kind of.
Sort of, kind of. Okay.
So who pays for the consultant?
Well, right now, the city would pay for that, but what is in the proposed franchise agreement, it would be a pass-through. There'd be
Reimbursed.
certain fees for that preparation would be part of the agreement that would be recouped with the services that customers pay.
And I'm guessing that the ability to assess and create a reasonable franchise fee is complicated enough to spend $30,000 on it.
Correct. So some of the things they have to look at is the wear and tear on the roads, litter that gets into stormwater drains, time, time and labor and so forth. So looking at all those issues, but it's really a lot of that's impact on infrastructure from the hauling and collection of the vehicles. Yes.
Thank you. And then my other question, which is, I think, germane, is that why 7 years on the new contract?
Because they had originally requested 10, but there's 3 years left. So 10 years would have been in violation of the municipal code. So the additional 7 keeps it within the 10 years, which is authorized under the municipal code.
But we've had one since you've noted, since 19, whenever we've had 9 amendments, and you described it as a mess. So is this 7 years solving the mess? And is it in the city's best interest to be committed to one vendor for 7 years?
I'm not sure I'm willing to I don't think I can answer that particular question, but the new contract will alleviate some of the problems. So the original franchise agreement from 1994 is, I think, like 20 pages. So it doesn't allow, let me back up. One thing that is missing in the current agreement with the 10 amendments is a lot of the new requirements that have been placed on the city and the hauler from SB 1383, which I've talked about that. So one of the strategies is to make sure that those responsibilities are much more clearly delineated so that we can ensure the city's compliance, not just now, but going forward, some of the education, record-keeping requirements. So that's part of that. And also, it's a more clear delineation of services that the city expects for parks, and also trying to help customers, residents, commercial, to actually reduce their waste, because then they have that ability to reduce their costs. So we're looking at a lot more public outreach. But as far as it's really hard to look at the old, I should say, the conglomeration of the franchise agreement, because you have that original with letters and amendments, and this is designed to consolidate all of this and have more, as I call it, modern language that protects the city, but also is for the hauler's best interest, so they know exactly what's expected of them.
And my last short question is, if we go with 7-year contract with this current firm, and I believe in the industry it's not unusual right now to be having either buyouts or consolidations. If there's a 7-year contract with the current firm and they choose to sell out, is that commitment that just transferred to the new buyer? I mean, the company that buys out what is a relatively small.
I don't remember. I think I don't remember. Yeah.
I also don't remember off the top of my head. I think that we would have to approve an assignment of the franchise agreement.
Okay.
That's normal.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you. Mr. Willander is happy. I'll take that in the form of a motion. I'm sorry. There's more comments.
Just one quick question.
Sure.
In regards to the contract length, again, generally, is that a general length of time for a competitor of R3? I mean, I know when you're going out and doing contracts with different types of vendors, they have a standard contract time based on what they have to do to get to know the city, provide the services. So is a 7 to 10 year contract kind of generally a standard length for the contract?
Well, there's two different issues. So the contract for the consulting firm is going to be very short term, in a few months. So for the hauler itself, 10 years is pretty reasonable. It just so happens there's 3 years left, and one of the reasons why they wanted a 10-year extension is they need to purchase a new vehicle, and that gives them the credit so they can actually get a loan for that. So that's what initiated all this. But adding 10 years to 3 years would violate our municipal code. So it's pretty standard, 10 years.
Okay. Any other questions?
I have
Mr. Ding?
because in the future that the fee will be paid by the garbage company instead of and then the city. But right now in the city provided this then a company for them, for sure that they can accept or they want to find somebody else. Is any possible for them find another one, just like a judge? Is it reasonable or not reasonable?
If I understand it correctly, so for us to select another hauler, is that what you're?
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I can answer that question.
So, yeah, before the council is
I don't
just-
think that that's before us at the moment.
Yeah.
It's actually on May 3rd's agenda, the actual agreement.
The agreement,
Okay.
thank you. Okay,
Francis.
so, all right.
This is just for the consultant.
This is just to the consultant
Yeah.
to work on the fees and structure,
Okay.
okay? And then we'll
That's good.
talk about the,
Yeah.
okay, yeah, thank you, thank you.
Okay.
So, Mr. Vice Mayor, you look like you're poised to say something. We just need a motion. Oh, first, any questions from the public or on Zoom regarding this? Okay, seeing none, we'll take a motion to approve 7.3.
So moved.
I will second that, even though they missed my garbage yesterday.
If they miss your garbage, you can call them up. That's happened to me before, and they'll come out there, and they did. See, absolutely. Either that, or you can borrow my pickup, and we'll go to the dump together. It'd be so much fun. So, all right. Any other questions? And then we're going to take a short break. Because it looks like.
No, I'm fine.
Are you okay?
My
You
watch
just.
told me to stand up.
Watch told her to stand up. Okay. Anybody else? Any questions? Further questions? No. Okay. Can we call the roll, please?
Councilmember Ding,
Aye.
Councilmember Farrar Rivas,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Gurney,
Aye.
Councilmember Wellender,
Yes.
Mayor Lo.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion carries
Could we
unanimously.
take 7.5 and clear that up and then take a break?
Yes, absolutely. Sounds perfect. Okay. 7.5. Again, back to you, Mr. Wellender. You had a quick question. Okay.
I've been promised, Madam Mayor, that the no gotcha questions to inform and educate.
No, this is not a go gotcha.
Thank you.
Question number one was in terms of the top of line item, Sonoma Hotel Planning Services. Is that the EIR that we're going through right now? It's page one at the top for AECom Technical Services Inc. Is that the EIR?
I'm seeing a nod
Okay, great,
from
thank
Laura.
you.
Thank you.
Interested, I was curious on our payment of BMW services for PD. Does that stand for our police department?
It does.
And even though we're in contract with the county, we're on hook for maintaining our BMW motorcycle?
It depends on whether we have some assets that are city assets and some that are county.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So that
Understood.
is one of the city motorcycles.
And then down on Broadway Restripe project, I was kind of hoping that that infamous organization called Caltrans picked up everything, but we spent $25,000 on striping. Is that when we restriped, or do you know?
I am not
That's
sure if it's restriping.
Mr.
I believe
Wyrick is nodding his head, and Mr. Berger, you seem like you know as well.
We had an obligation on that project.
Have they replaced our tree that they killed? Just kidding.
I'll take that up at a future meeting. But we did have an obligation.
That we made a commitment that we were going to pay
Yes.
for the striping.
And I'm not positive on exactly what it was, but I know that we had an obligation.
Okay, thank you. That's and this is again, sorry, but down at on the third page, on page my 69, under the engineering of GHD, I see we had a pretty good chunk for engineering on Depot Park. I was just curious on what that was, engineering on Depot Park. For
We have two current CIPs on Depot Park, both in design phase. One for the HVAC for the museum.
Okay.
And the second one for the civil improvements for the bathroom, the park.
Excellent. Okay.
The path from the ADA stall.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And I will only take one more, and that's a big chunk, and that is in terms of our payment to the county for the sheriff. Is that per month, per quarter, per year, the 354,000?
It's per month, I believe.
Yeah, I believe it's monthly.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Any comments from the public regarding item 7.5? Any on Zoom? No? I'll entertain a motion on 7.5.
Seeing how I caused this, I would like to entertain a motion to approve.
I second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Any questions? Except for I'm wondering about that tree. Other than that, none. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Ding.
Aye.
Councilmember Farrar Rivas.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Gurney.
Aye.
Councilmember Wellender.
Yes.
Mayor Lo.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion carries unanimously.
Okay, we have a request for a quick break. We will reconvene at 8 o'clock on the dot. Thank you. I lied, it's 8:01 or 2 or 3. All right, we're at 8.1, a public hearing. There's a public hearing to adopt a resolution updating the City of Sonoma master fee schedule for fiscal year 22-23. And I've lost Councilmember Ding. Anybody see Mr. Ding anywhere?
Calling Mr. Ding.
We do have a quorum, but we're just trying to be, now I know the culprit. Mr. Demler, you've absconded with my counsel. Please return. Post haste. Thank you, sir. All right, public hearing to update the City of Sonoma master fee schedule. And we will have a report, and then we will open the public hearing and then bring it back to the council. So, Ms. Garcia, I believe the floor is yours. Thank you.
Sorry. Hello, Mayor and City Council members. I'm Liz Garcia, the Deputy Finance Director. Before you tonight is an action to approve the master fee schedule. I wanted to tell you a little bit about the master fee schedule first. The city has an established master fee schedule for those services that benefit only the specific users of that service. The new fee rates take effect 60 days after they're passed by council. The fees are generated from a variety of services, including building and planning permits, special event fees, water services, such as late fees. There are several different kinds. City Council has the authority to establish the fees for services. However, the fee cannot exceed the average cost to perform that service. So we can't make a profit on those fees. The fees should be updated annually to remain consistent with the city's expenses. Some fees in this report are informational, such as the fire fees, which are passed by the Sonoma Valley Fire District, or some are set by the state. As an example, the strong motion instrumentation and seismic mapping fee, that one is set by the state. And then how they're passed, there's basically two different ways. The planning fees that were originally passed by council back in previously have a CPI update and automatically adjust every July 1st. The fees in this schedule include an update for July 1 of 22. The CPI update that was used for July 1 of 22 is 5.2%. These fees that have been reviewed and are still appropriate. These some of the fees you'll see have a smaller CPI for the planning, and that's basically due to rounding. All of our fees round down to a whole dollar, and when you're dealing with such small numbers, believe it or not, 50 cents makes a big difference. So in this example that I have right here, the fee presented is 4.9% rather than the 5.2%. If I use the 5.2%, the fee would be $170.42. So rounding that down takes it all the way down to the 4.9%. The remaining fees in the master fee schedule are calculated by analyzing who in the city is performing that service and then multiplying that number of hours by the employee's fully burdened salary to get the average time, and by the average time to perform that service. So as a result, these fees could increase or decrease depending on who is performing that service this year and how long we think it will take. So that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, we'll entertain questions from the council, and then we'll open the public hearing. Any questions on the fee schedule? One question. Please.
I'm curious, have we, in terms of I believe the goal is what I call cost recovery as far as the investment of time. How well have we done in terms of tracking what we've actually spent on time and how that may equate or not to actually cost recovery?
That's a great question. So right now, we are implementing the new OpenGov system, and next year, this time, we will have solid information on exactly how many permits we're doing, who's working on them. We'll have a lot more data. Right now, it is literally department heads analyzing their data and coming up with their best assumptions.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Yes, Mr. Ding.
What difference between the fees and taxes from the city perspective? Because I know that the business license has been classified as tax.
Right. So, do you want to answer this one, or do you want me to? Okay, thank you.
A fee is meant, just as Councilmember Wellender was saying, solely for cost recovery. So the amount of the fee cannot exceed the cost imposed on the agency for providing the service. A tax is intended as a revenue-raising measure, so it's not tied necessarily to the costs. It's not related to a service necessarily. So you can have business taxes and you can have business license fees, and those are some people sometimes use them interchangeably, but they're different things from a legal perspective. One is simply to defer the cost of processing a business license, and the other is actually a tax that's meant to raise revenue, and they do so by charging that tax at the time of issuance of a business license.
All right, yeah, no, thank you. And based on my understanding, so the fee looks like a more customer oriented. It's customer service. It's close to customer service. So I'm wondering, right now we just simply made the adjustment based on an inflation rate, and it's possible for us to consider satisfaction by our customer, and because this is a too big question, maybe for the future. But I just raise this question.
I don't know how we answer that, but is there a way to
It's always
factor in
possible
customers?
You're going to have a customer interaction. We have to just constantly work on that to improve that, so that the people feel positive about the interaction. It doesn't change the fact that we're actually spending the money, where the people are spending the time, and we can always show how it hangs together and what our policies are. And I think you just separate the two. I want to know if there's a dissatisfaction so that we can deal with it. As someone has told me in other meetings, if I get a specific, I can work on it. So I want to know that, but that doesn't stop that we need to have that charge at this point.
Okay.
We'll take it on a case-by-case basis. Basically.
Case by case, yeah, because I received some of the emails, the people complain, the fees is high, but I said, why that's high? Yeah, maybe you can give me some reference or something
You
like
can always send those emails to me.
that. Okay,
Yeah.
all right, thank you.
Then they can look at the worksheets.
Yeah.
The worksheets are pretty detailed.
Very
yes.
detailed.
Ms. Ferrer-Rivas.
Yeah, so I just wanted to thank you for explaining the rounding, because in my business, you always round one way or the other. But so I certainly understand if you rounded up, then you would be overcharging. But it does seem like, there's a lot of nickels and dimes that are being lost. So being a person that realizes in business, nickels and dimes can add up to a lot. So I don't, is the billing, it's just easier if it's rounded down in even numbers, then, I understand that. But just wanted to make that comment, and thank you for that explanation.
Thank you. Any further questions? One more. Thank you.
One quick one. In terms of, back to the idea of charging what it's going to actually cost, I do believe, if my memory serves me, if someone wishes to appeal a motion, that appeal price is $400. And I don't think that's based upon cost recovery. I think that's just based upon, I guess, the idea of making sure that anybody can appeal a process. So I'm just curious because of what you were talking about. It's not a tax, and it doesn't sound like $400 is going to give us cost recovery.
So there are different types of appeals. And for instance, an administrative appeal is CA10, and that one, excuse me, is $257. And like I said, these dollar amounts were set by the estimated time for an average appeal. So you're always going to have one that's going to be higher. You're probably going to have one that's going to be lower. This is just the average.
Thank you.
Last year, when we discussed about appeal the fees, last year or year before last year, I forgot. Yeah, we decided the different treatment, and the city developer local within the city limit, or within the county limit, and also out of the county limit from the Napa county limit, we have the different rates. Also, that is the question.
Was jurisdictional comparisons taken into account of any of these, or
There
it
is
doesn't?
one fee, to be honest, I can't remember which one it is. I was just trying to find it.
Out of town, that is, I believe
But there
that's
is-
$1,000, but out the cities,
Is it the planning?
yeah.
Okay. Planning, I'm trying to find it. Planning appeal, she says. Yes, she's right. 18. So in PL 18, you have both a resident and a non-resident and a major permit and a minor permit. And I put the different rates, the different CPIs in that one for all four different calculations.
Based on what kind of the different in the CPI, because
Yes.
Sonoma County is different, and Napa, or how we can.
It's based on the previous year's fees, and then these ones got a CPI update of 5.2%.
Okay.
Since our questions are answered, I'm going to open the public hearing. Is there anyone wishing to speak to this? I recognize someone. Yes, Mr. Demler, please.
Robert Demler first. I'm not prepared for this, but I do think this is the appropriate time for me to raise something that's been on my mind for a long time. I think permits from the city are fees, correct?
Services.
And I would like the city council and the city staff to start thinking, please, about waiving all fees to the occupants of city properties when there are improvements that require a fee. For example, Sonoma League for Historic Preservation did a remodel of our carriage house to enable us to lease it for income to support the league, and we had to do ADA and energy compliances, and between the city and the county, we spent about $9,000 on fees, on permit fees. So I think it's reasonable, if we're making improvements to city properties, that at least the fees, the permits, be waived. So that's my request. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Demler. Are there any other comments from the public regarding the fees? Any comments on Zoom? All right, I'm closing the public hearing. 8:17-ish. and bring this back to the council for comments, questions, changes. Yes,
Would you like to ask the staff?
you want to turn on your microphone, please?
It's possible for the Garcia if I can get an answer for those comments.
An answer for the comments
Yeah, if any
from Mr.
new
Demler.
information.
So the question is, the rationale, I think, is what we're asking, the rationale for assessing fees on our requirements on city-owned buildings.
It's been my understanding that even the city has to pay. So even if the city decided to pull a permit for one of the city buildings, even the city has to pay it. So not just not-for-profits. So I don't know why. I would assume that everyone, there are established fees and that the city incurs those fees.
And I believe we have another
Yes,
comment.
that's
Thank
great.
you, Mr.
Thank you,
Warwick.
Madam Mayor.
Yeah.
I'll just elaborate on this a little bit. The reason that permit fees are charged on city properties or city-owned properties when improvements are made is there's a variety of reasons. Oftentimes, for instance, on a city facility, there may be something that's improved that's paid out of the Water Enterprise Fund or the Cemetery Fund, which are enterprise funds that are separated from an accounting standpoint and how that's tracked, how things are paid for. Also, there are grants oftentimes associated with city-owned properties where the cost of the permits are included or covered as part of the grant application, and therefore we are able to recover those costs. If we simply waived them, we would be out the cost of providing the service, and so that's part of the reason why we charge fees. Obviously, if we're dealing with county services or other outside agencies, they also have fees that they assess, regardless of whether we're a city or not. So those are some of the reasons that we do that. So frankly, we've assessed building permit fees on any buildings projects that we've had. So when we remodeled this facility, we included that as part of the project costs. We were able to, again, it's been the council's policy to do full cost recovery with just a few minor exceptions like the appeal fee that Councilmember Ding was speaking of. The council made a decision last year to subsidize appeals of the Planning Commission and break it out in a certain way, which is a subsidy. We're not getting full cost recovery on those planning department appeals. So, and the council, it can do that, and the council can choose to waive the permit fees. That's a choice that you make, but there's still a cost associated with providing those services, and it has to be paid for somewhere. So, the other thing about leases, to Mr. Demler's question, many of the city leases require that those entities take full responsibility for the cost of maintaining or improving those properties. So the lease says that they need to take care of those costs, and part of those costs includes the cost of providing the service for the permit. So but again, the city council has the option of not doing that and subsidizing that activity. Hope that clarifies.
Very much so. Thank you so much. Anything, any further comments? All right. We have closed the public hearing, Mr. Demler, but. So that was public? No, that's staff report. But I was just going to say, if you have a comment, I'm going to be courteous to you since it was your question, but the public hearing is technically
Thank closed. You. It's old, and it's late, and I'm old, and I'm tired. Yes, I understand exactly what the staff report said from Mr. Warwick. However, when we paid these fees, no one suggested that we ask for a grant for any of this. and it was a huge improvement. We spent $70-something thousand in one year and 26 in another to cover the cost of this improvement for your property. So, and I do think it's not unreasonable for fees on city properties, particularly for nonprofits, to have it waived, and there should be a process. We are babes in the woods when it comes to dealing with these things. We're all volunteers at the Sonoma League and other institutions, organizations. So I don't want to beat this dead horse, but I do think it's something that should be considered. And I'm going to mention this again in the presentation that you have asked that the nonprofits, the city-owned property occupants make. I'll be back on April 3rd. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Looking forward to it. Thank you so much. I think we understand your issue here. Any further questions regarding this item? Not seeing any, entertain a motion to approve the master fee schedule.
Madam
Yes.
Mayor, I'm not sure if this is the right timing of it, but I would like to at least throw out the possibility for this item to be continued. And the reason I say that is twofold. One is I want to make sure that it doesn't, there's not a time downfall to it, that it's going to cause great pains. But this is a topic that I am asked a lot about, as far as why fees, why are they so expensive, why? And unfortunately, I have not had the time, since this was a short week, to actually kind of go through it. And I would love the opportunity to be more educated so that when I am approached by the public, that I can speak with a greater sense of accuracy. And I did get clarity from at least our city manager saying that he did not foresee it being, if it's a 2-week delay before it gets, I guess, 60 days.
So if you could put that in the form of a motion, we'll see what happens.
Well, I guess the motion is I'd like to have this item continued and acted on at the next city council meeting.
So the motion is to table this item to a time certain at the April 3rd meeting to continue the item. Is there a second to continue this item?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a second. Now we can entertain questions on the motion. So my question to the staff is, what are you talking about over there, and how is this going to upset the apple cart?
This is a public hearing, so if we want to, we don't want to have to renotice the public hearing. I mean, we could. The other option would be to amend the motion such that we actually continue the public hearing until this date certain.
I believe that was the intent of the motion, was to continue the public hearing, not hearing any dispute from the maker of the motion or the seconder, that we will interpret the motion as to continue the public hearing to April 3rd time certain. Okay, any questions on the motion? Any public comment on the motion? Seeing none. Clerk will call the roll.
Zoom.
We asked.
Okay.
Councilmember Dean.
Aye.
Councilmember Farrar Rivas.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Gurney.
No.
Councilmember Wellender.
Aye.
Mayor Lowe.
No.
Thank you. The motion carries 3-2.
Thank you. All right, so we'll be back. Thank you. So we are now to the regular calendar, which is part 2 of 4 reports, to receive and discuss annual reports from the City of Sonoma Community Service Providers. And I will turn this over to the city manager to introduce this item, please. Thank you.
My mic on? We've changed this to have 3 sessions, 3 presentations per, and more times in council meetings, so we don't have 5. We also made sure that people know that they're going to have the 7 minutes. This group was told 7, the future is going to be 5. And we're going to put the clock on. These are very.
Did you tell them that we're going to give them more money the shorter their presentation?
I
Just
didn't
wanted to
tell them
know.
that.
Okay,
I don't have the authority to do that. But these three have been very good partners with us. We have the Boys and Girls Club, we have the Community Center, and we have Splash, which is around the fabulous pool program at the high school that they operate. I think it'll be a real honor to hear what they have to say about how they use our money and so on tonight. But just so you know, we had concerns about the last one, and we've tried to remedy that. So.
Absolutely. Well, you know, it's hard because there's a lot to say, and we want to hear it, but.
And I'll let them know it's the last item on the agenda.
Yeah. So who do we have first to come forward?
There's no particular order.
That's why I'm asking.
Yeah.
You're first. Yeah,
You're the first. Please come forward. Excellent. If you'll just introduce yourself and let us know what we're gonna.
Yes,
discussing.
I'm Mary Favreau from Sonoma Valley Health and Recreation Association, better known as Sonoma Splash. Thank you. I'm just going to give a very short background because this story started quite a while ago before you were all here, and so I'll give a short background, tell you what we do and how we are using the grant. Before I begin, I just want you to see Jane Hansen. She is our aquatic director, and she has got us off to a fantastic start. So if you ask any really hard questions, I'll ask her to come up. But as most of you know, in 2005, the high school pool closed, and that was the only community pool really at the time. And from that point, there was always a group working to bring a community pool to Sonoma Valley. We worked on it a long time, and just recently, in the last several years, were able to partner with the Sonoma Valley Unified School District to create a community pool on the high school campus. So the way that this pool works is the school district owns and maintains the pool and runs their high school student programs there. The Sonoma Splash as an organization creates and operates all the community programming. We hire and train the personnel that's there in terms of lifeguards and swim instructors and so on. Our idea was to create a community space where everybody, all ages, could come together and not only learn water safety, learn to swim, but also water sports and water fitness, and generally to have fun in the water. So it was for everybody. Already we have a variety of programming in operation or in development, and the community has been out in force. It's been great. Despite opening at probably the worst time of the year, we opened in October of 2022, going into winter, and we've still had an incredible response already. We've have approximately 200 annual or monthly passes have been purchased from the community, as well as almost 1,500 daily passes since we've opened. There's learn to swim programs going on, water aerobics, and right now, this very week, we have spring camps going on for kids as they're on school break. One of our main goals is to make sure that the entire community knows this pool, this aquatic center, is for everyone. And we don't want access or cost to ever be a barrier to anyone coming for any of the programming or just to enjoy recreation there. So one of our main goals is to ensure that we have scholarships available for all of our programming. And that's where a lot of our grant money that we're looking for will go towards, to make sure everybody has access to programming. Our outreach includes working not only with our own website and communication, but we work with a number of nonprofit partners to communicate what our programming is and to start identifying people that would benefit from the scholarship programs. So that's like LaLuz, Boys and Girls Club, and the Mentoring Alliance. So we have, actually, if you just want to go back to the actual grant that we first presented to the council in 2014, and the council agreed to support our programming. We missed the deadline, though, because we just didn't get open in time. But very nicely, when we came back, when we were ready to open, you agreed to go ahead and honor that initial grant, a 3-year grant at $25,000 a year. And it really was listed as recreational opportunities for community members. So it's pretty broad. And as we're learning, we're trying to allocate that grant to make sure that everyone has access. Your grant in the first year is focused on providing free community access days, of which I believe there are 5 scheduled. 5 scheduled. We had our first community access day on February 20th, President's Day. Turned out to be a sunny day. We got really lucky, and we had over 260 community members came into the pool and had free access, and it was a blast. I mean, it was just, we went down and just watched. It was all age groups. I love the teens, especially because it's like, what do the teens do in our town? There's not a lot of recreational opportunities for them. So they were in their groups and just having a great time. There was a lot of splashing and yelling, and it was great. We're really trying hard to promote the fact that the city is helping with this grant. So I think in the package you got the background information. You have like the press release we did jointly. We just really want to acknowledge that. So if you want to move to the next slide very quickly, this is just a grid. I'm not going to go through this. This is just a grid to show the breadth of the programming that is either, again, operational now or in development. And the red circles are the things that the city grant for this year are being applied against. So that's basically what we're doing. The community days, the summer and break camps, and swim lessons. And then last slide, just want to say that prior to this community pool, the option we had to swim was up in that corner to learn to swim. And now this bottom photo is from the community day that was in the warm pool, the smaller pool, and that's what it looked like that day. So big difference.
Thank you so much.
It's all boys in the top one, and you got a mixture in the bottom one.
It was a little older. Without water. Let's just be clear. All right. Thank you for that presentation. I'll turn it over to the council to see if there's any questions or comments regarding the presentation. None. Mr. Vice Mayor, please.
I would just like to say you will find me at 6 o'clock in the morning, 4 days a week at the pool. And it is absolutely stunning. It's a beautiful pool. The water is great. And congratulations for what you've achieved. And tomorrow happens to be a free day, if I recall correctly. No?
Nope, don't try and get in for free.
No, okay. All right.
Yeah, we're
Anyway,
not waiving fees for you.
It's a full day. It's a full open day, though, tomorrow. So.
Okay. Any other comments, Mr. Ding?
I would like to take this opportunity just saying thank you for our province, the city council member to support this project. They made a brave decision and to $250,000 spread over the 10 years.
Yeah.
Especially the former council member, Mayor Madeline Agrimonte. Stick with this program long and long. You have the legacy. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Ding. Ms. Farrar Rivas, any questions or comments? She's fine. I do want to recognize former council member Madeline Agramonte and thank her so much for all her steadfast leadership on this project. I was privileged to serve with April, thank you so much. And I just, a lot of people say, well, Sonoma doesn't offer a recreation and parks department. I've heard this grumbling and so forth, but look at what we do when we have partners. We provide more than we could possibly do under any other kind of scheme. And I just want to thank you all. You heard it from everyone, but swimming has been a huge part of my family. And some of you may know this, I was actually on the school board that horrible day when people walked in and told us that they had filled in the pool in the middle of the night. And I have to tell you, it was probably the worst experience I've ever had as a public official. My son is a water polo player and was at the time. And everyone had a personal story, but it really wrenched apart my family. And so, of course, I taught at Sonoma High. I saw the kids learning how to swim. And in Sonoma County, we have a lot of kids and adults that don't know how to swim. And if we don't have a pool, they're not going to learn. And it's a critical life-saving thing that we offer it. So it means so much to me personally, but I know what it means for the entire community. And I just thank you immensely for all the work. Thank you so much.
Thank you all.
All right, moving along, I see Boys and Girls Club maybe next. Thank you. You were here earlier, too. Yes. Thank you. Please.
Well, thank you for having me. And thank you for not changing it to 5 minutes because I really squeezed in 7 minutes here really quickly. So I appreciate it.
We look forward to hearing it.
Well, my name is Dawn Holman. I'm the VP of Administration for the Boys and Girls Club of Sonoma Valley. And I should have slides up there. Did they? There we go. The VP of Administration for the Boys and Girls Club of Sonoma Valley, so thank you for having me and thank you for supporting us. Our mission is to provide positive opportunities for our community's youth and teens to learn, succeed, and discover their full potential. So just a brief history about who we are. We were established in 1962 as the Boys Club. We became the Boys and Girls Club in the 80s. And in 2000, we opened up our Maxwell Clubhouse in Maxwell Farms, where we did after-school programming, summer camp, and our athletic programming, as well as teens. In 2007, we moved outside the clubhouse and started doing after-school programming in the schools as part of the after-school education and safety program in partnership with the district. In 2015, we opened our standalone teen services building in Maxwell Shopping Center. And then most recently, in 2021, we did a merger with Teen Services Sonoma, created a one-stop shop for all of our teens up in the Springs, which has been very successful and very exciting. We have 8 sites that we have programming at, so 6 school sites, Operation Bicycle, Teen Services, and of course Maxwell Clubhouse. We serve anywhere between 400 and 450 kids a day across all of our programming, so that's after-school teens and our athletic program. Our demographic is similar, if not mirrors that of the school district. And we have around 72% of our families that are low income, very low, or extremely low income that we serve. We have around 30 to 35% that receive scholarships, financial aid, full or partial of some sort. This number fluctuates up and down depending on our funding. So sometimes we're able to offer lower fee structure or programs for free. Of course, though, we never turn anyone away if they can't pay because we welcome everybody and we want everyone to come to our programs. And this is our organizational budget. So we are a $4 million budget. This is a snapshot of our income. You'll see our 2 large funding sources is the district as well as our events. And then we've got grants and foundations, events, and our program fees. We're always working on ways to increase some of those smaller buckets to diversify the portfolio, so we're not dependent all on one or another income source. And this is our expense budget. You'll see that 77% of our expenses are on payroll. It does sound like a large number, I'm sure. We have 77 staff members, and that's across, it's full-time, part-time, and administrative. 80% of our staff are doing direct service with our kids. So we may have 77 staff members, but 80% of that is direct service, day-to-day, doing after-school programming, doing our team programming, and doing our athletic programming. This bucket does tend to grow year over year, just with the increase of minimum wage and the cost of living, as well as our benefits. And then our other buckets include general operating, events, and our programs. So this is our athletic budget, which is $144,000. And you can see our two large funding sources is the City of Sonoma, so thank you very much. You help keep our program going, as well as our program fees at 56%. Our program fees range anywhere between $100 to $175, depending on the sport or the program that we're running at that time. Of course, scholarships are available, and we never turn anyone away for the inability to pay. This expense budget mirrors our organizational budget, with 87% of our budget going to our payroll. But this is including 3 staff that oversee our program. They do coach recruitment, coach training. They do the drafts. They run the leagues. They set the teams. They also go out and recruit members to participate in our program, and they do all the registration process. So they play a big role in this, in the program overall and the success. The 13% for program expenses, so that's everything from jerseys, medals, basketballs, nets, gloves, shin guards, all those things that we need to keep the kids safe when they're playing, but then also to enjoy it when they are in program. So we look at ourselves as a Parks and Rec for the kids in the Valley. We have 8 athletic programs that we run: volleyball, t-ball, futsal, junior basketball, rock climbing, and then a couple other basketball programs. We focus on the healthy lifestyle and the skills for our families, and then teamwork, sportsmanship, leadership, and skill development. To the left on that slide, or my left, you will see our enrollment for year over year. So I wanted to give you a snapshot of the last 5 years. You'll see in 2019, we were right around 500 kids that we are serving annually in our program. We know what happened in 2020 and 2021. We saw a big dip due to COVID, which, I mean, sports are such an important part of a kid's life, that to have that taken away, I know was a big impact. And so in 2022 and 2023, we've really seen an increase, and we've really started to build that program back up. 2023, we're right around 400, and we're only in the first quarter. So my anticipation and my goal is to have our enrollments up over 500, so exceeding 2019 and getting closer to that 600 mark. And I'm confident we can, because we haven't even enrolled the rest of our sports for the rest of the season. So it's very exciting. Here's a list of our community partners. We have quite a few. I couldn't even name all of them. I would probably need like 5 slides. So this is just a handful. Of course, the City of Sonoma being one of our longest partners and most valued. So what's next? Rock climbing. I have it as just not a summer program. So over the last handful of years, and I've been with the Boys and Girls Club for about 8 years, rock climbing has always been a camp during the summer, and we haven't really offered it as part of our normal like Parks and Rec athletic rotation. And we are fortunate enough to have a very passionate athletic director who loves rock climbing, and so we now have it in our rotation. So it's one of our sports that we can offer as like for a week, or we can offer it once a week, and it fits in between all of our leagues. It's been very successful, and it's very popular during the summer, and has been very popular now that we offer it year round. Clinics and our leagues. So oftentimes we have run leagues, so it's just team play and sports play. We added clinics into the rotation as well, and they're offered in between our leagues, and it just allows kids in the Valley to have another opportunity for skill development, to play a sport, to try a sport, and to do something new. Oftentimes, we're getting kids that have never played a sport, so they can try league, they can try clinic if they're not sure. We have athletes that maybe aren't quite good enough to make a school team, so they want to come back and they want to play on a league with us, or they want to do the clinics to help improve their skill development and go after it again. And then, of course, we have the financial piece. A lot of kids can't necessarily afford doing the travel team or the more elite team, and so this just gives them an opportunity to play year-round and continue their development. Teen athletic programming. Since the merger with Teen Services, we've seen an increase in the teen participation in our programming, and so we have the teens back as part of our Park and Rec, which is very exciting in our athletic program. So we are launching a 3-on-3 basketball league this spring, and then hoping to launch a volleyball program this summer specifically for our teens, just as Mary said, to give them something else to do, to give them an outlet and give them an activity. So that's where we are. A lot of exciting stuff happening, a lot of exciting stuff coming up.
Fantastic. So exciting. Any questions or comments from the council on the program? Anything? Ms. Farrar Rivas?
Yeah, I would just say the Boys and Girls Club means a lot to me. I was actually Volunteer of the Year in 1986 when I offered dance classes, and that started my whole career in teaching dance. But the other thing is I attended your teen program, your youth award program just a few months ago, and I have to say that the teens that presented, it was just really amazing to see young people that had gone through traumas and that were willing to be so vulnerable publicly about what they had gone through and what they had accomplished in their lives. It was just quite amazing. So it's a great programs. Really appreciate it.
And I have to give a shout out to Vicki, who was our Youth of the Year, because she made it to state. So we're going next week, and she's going to be competing in the state competition for Youth of the Year. So it's very exciting.
Oh, come back and let us know how it
Yes,
goes.
please.
I will.
Go, Vicky, go. Yeah.
I just want to say thank you. And also your introduction reminded me, and the two boys of mine, right now they are adults, although they are not in the Sonoma, but we went to an YMCA, in Easter Bay, and we learn a lot. Boys learn a lot, grow from the YMCA, and then how to become a good loser. That is the the most. Thank you.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you so much. And once again, just like the pool, I mean, you're saving lives every day, giving people just so many great role models and support for families. My kids went to the Boys and Girls Club. I mean, I was a working mom, and I wouldn't have made it without the Boys and Girls Club. And that's when it was over, by the way, on First Street over here. So I've been there for a long time. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I've been there for 8 years, and I absolutely love it.
Yeah, you're doing a great job. Thank you. We're so proud to be able to be a supporter of yours. All right, and now on to the community center. Vanessa, please.
Here. Hi, I'm Vanessa Glamour Rungland. I am the interim director at the community center. I've been there about 6 weeks, so I'll try to answer everybody's questions. And I think there are probably some people here that know a lot about the community center, so it can help me out. The history, I just want to say right now at the community center, we have the 70th year anniversary celebration, and there's an art installation up on the second floor. So it has great historical pieces about the press releases and articles about the history of the community center. So you can come on over to the center and see that for yourself. But as you know, we've been a community center for 70 years. I'm not going to go into all the history, but we are living the mission of a community center for the people, by the people. Our mission is we build, the Sonoma Community Center builds and nurtures a vibrant community, one where every individual feels celebrated for who they are and has opportunities to grow. The center provides the kinds of spaces and activities that invite people to connect, learn, create together, and offers a broad variety of classes for people of all ages and abilities. The community center serves all people of all ages, abilities, and backgrounds. We serve about 15,000 people annually inside and outside of the community center through our events, winter art market, the Farmers Market, Dia de Muertos, our Thanksgiving events. The center offers over 200 classes annually with approximately 12 participants per class. We have seen an increase in youth participation as we've increased youth classes. So we've seen an increase in up to 26% in 2022, and an increase of adults, non-white and low-income participants as a result of the efforts of our bilingual engagement coordinator and specific class offerings targeted to the Latino community. We have really done a lot of work around equity. We have done a lot of trainings, but two of the things I'd like to highlight is now all of the classes at the community center are on a sliding scale to really break down any barriers around fees and money issues. We also, I'm sorry, I'm getting lost here in my sliding scale. Oh, we've really diversified our instructors. And we're offering a lot more scholarships. Let me see, keep going. I have here, I'm going to go to the next. So we're right now running two, we have a club, the Queer Art Club, that we offer every Wednesday of every month, where students from all over, we work with Positive Images, can come and have a space to really come together and have community and use art as a way to explore their needs. And then we also are doing 2 camps this year that are also part of their queer art camps. The sliding scale. So our sliding scale, every class is that we have a tiered system. So there's 3 different tiers, and you pay tier that is most appropriate for your budget. We have some budget numbers here, just looking at our revenue. We just did a really broad overview, but grants, major gifts, membership, and then our expenses. So the City of Sonoma's money goes to support our general programming, and then also supports the center's role as emergency preparedness and as an emergency volunteer center. So the center collects a list of volunteers that will be ready in emergency. We have started a new partnership where we're working with the City of Sonoma, the Center for Volunteers and Nonprofit Leadership, and the Sonoma Collaborative. And we're also doing more outreach and looking at offering more classes and trainings around emergency preparedness. Oh, I've just talked about all that there, sorry. And then our facilities, we've begun a new process of evaluating the building and the site with Strata Architecture and Planning. The result will be a comprehensive plan around upgrades and site changes. We'll be holding some town hall meetings to really get community input around their input, what they'd like to see at the community center. The center's also installed solar in 2018, and we're looking at efficiency upgrades and improvements as part of our larger plan. Here's our list of partnerships. They're also, as the Boys and Girls Club said, too many to mention or too many to list out, but we work in collaboration with many organizations here in Sonoma. List of our team, there's a few to mention. New people at the community center. We have a new director of ceramics. We have a new program associate. We have a bilingual engagement coordinator who's been there now for 1 year. A board of trustees. And then just to show an example of everything that goes on at the community center, here's a list of upcoming classes just for the rest of the month of March. We have a Sonoma Alternative Symphony for youth, cooking classes. We have a class in medicinal cooking. We have different ceramics classes. We're offering storybook yoga for toddlers. That's a new group that we're looking at targeting and offering classes for. We have belly dancing this weekend, if anyone's interested in a belly dancing class. Drawing, clay, open studios for figure arts. We have a youth and teen baking class. So there's lots of exciting classes going on at the community center. talked about the 70th anniversary show. That's up till the end of the month, so please come and see. It's really interesting, all the articles and things that have gone at the center. We have Trash and Fashion coming. I have some cards here for everyone, but that's April 22nd. We'd love to have you all there. And then just some other things. We have Shauna Davis she has a book coming out, so we have a butter tasting class that you can come and check out. And then we have another event coming up. This is all just happening this month. I just wanted to highlight what's happening in March. We're having a youth poster making workshops, and then we'll have a gallery of highlighting all the social justice posters that the youth are creating in Sonoma. So that's an overview of everything we do, and we're just so grateful for the ongoing support of the City of Sonoma and the partnership that you provide us. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Wonderful. And I will definitely be at Trash and Fashion.
Thank you.
I was there last year. I totally loved it. I want to make one of those or be in it somehow. I've got some great
I'm
ideas.
sure we can come up with a way to get you on the
Oh,
runway.
you have no doubt. I'm in. Sign me up.
Now you said that, I will be calling you tomorrow.
Absolutely. I've got some ideas. And I've got a daughter who's very creative. She'll come up with something for this. So it's great. And I saw I was there for the chili.
You were there at Chili Bowl. It was a great event.
It was a great event, and really enjoyed it, and saw all the displays. And again, just we're so blessed with all these wonderful nonprofits. Really blessed. And I'm sorry, I went ahead of the council. I don't usually do that. I'm so sorry. Anyone else have any comments or anything to say, to add? Thanks. Best of luck.
Thank you.
Let us know. I'll definitely be willing. I mean, especially if it'll help raise money, I'm willing to do any, people have seen me do some crazy things, and so totally into it. We'll be happy to do it.
Okay, I'll be reaching out. Thank you so
got
much.
it. Our pleasure. Thanks so much. Thanks for hanging in there. All right, so this was an informational item. Are there any comments from the public regarding any of these reports? Any on Zoom? No. Okay, we are at commission and committee rosters. Just checking in, I think any movement to get people filing to be on our traffic safety committee, because I need to get Mr. Gurney a liaison assignment. He's been, yes. Can you give us a report, Ms. Barr?
Sure. I was looking at that today. Unfortunately, I don't have an updated chart for you because Monique is at training this week. I believe when I looked at it, I believe we now have 4 applications for traffic safety at least. And you also have multiple applications for youth as well as Cultural and Fine Arts Commission.
Okay, can we make sure that we get an update on that? So at the next meeting, I know Mr. Ding has an appointment that he needs to fulfill on the Cultural and Fine Arts Commission. Let's beat the bushes, as they say, to get people to apply for the Traffic Safety Committee. I was on the radio this morning. I put in a big pitch for it. Everywhere I go, I put in a big pitch for this. Let's try to get some people on this committee so we can deal with all of the various traffic issues. Any other questions or about the committees, commissions, Ms. Ferrari?
Maybe we need to offer some really fancy, bright-colored shirts for traffic safety.
That is possible.
I don't know if that's what they're looking
Something
for.
exciting.
Something exciting? Well, all right. I think, having a liaison of the vice mayor should be a huge draw. I don't know what else we could possibly match that. All right, well, thank you for that, and we'll look forward to bringing that back and filling those committees, hopefully, at least making Mr. Ding the appointment. If you could please coordinate with him and let him know who's applied and so forth, so we're prepared to do that at the next meeting. Because they're doing a lot of work. I mean, they're busy. This year of the arts, they're very busy. Okay, we're at adjournment, and seeing no objections, we are adjourned.